So I'm going to tell you my life story. This will be part one. This is my story. I was growing up as a disadvantaged, troubled youth of mental illness, of stigma, history of stigmatization of mental illness, and how stigmatization, because of my mental illness, has destroyed my life, and how my life has been destroyed by the crimes of Wells Fargo. Now, I'll give you the backstory first, because again, this is the story of my life. I'm 40 years old. It's October 27th, 2021 right now. On November 1st, I'll be 41. Wells Fargo massacred my life in November and December of 2017, roughly around there. Is the first time that they violated the law against me. And they've been massacring me since then, in particular since April of 2019. And in these videos about my life, and again, I'll give you the backstory because there's a big backstory. But in these videos, all that I tell you, my story is best left untold. Okay, that I have such a complicated life, and so there's so many nuances and things to understand, and potential for hurt and pain for other people. It's best for all the very, very private details of my life to remain just that, to remain private. That I should share them with people who I know really, really well, and I should share all the facts, one little fact at a time, with people that I know well, so that they can get used to, as I'll explain in these videos about my life. I have a history of horrific sexual abuse that was directed at me. Okay, now this is the type of thing that when people hear about this horrific sexual abuse, it can run them away. I also have a history of horrific emotional and psychological abuse. This can run people away. I've got a history of where I was, as a troubled youth, I was involved in drug use. This can run people away. Okay, I've got a history where I went to a mental health hospital, a mental hospital. Okay, this can run people away. Okay, there's a girl from my childhood that some things happened with, that eventually mutated, and I'll explain this in these videos as I go along. But this mutated, this thing that happened, what happened between me and this girl, mutated into a rumor that I quote unquote raped my neighbor's daughter. Okay, well, because this girl, the potential for harm to this girl, but this part of the story I'm being told is enormous. Okay, and all the people, like my this history of emotional abuse and psychological abuse, this was dealt to me by my stepfather. This is extremely painful for his mother to hear. Okay, he died out of complications that ultimately tie back to alcoholism many, many years ago. Okay, and this lady is destroyed and devastated. That my story doesn't need to be told. Okay, and go back to what I was saying though, with all these details, I can't be a stranger to everyone. I've got to have some people in my life who I'm close with, and all these different facts. I tell them the way to do it is to tell it one at a time, one little detail at a time, very, very, very slowly. The way that I put it is, it's like you have a kettle full of water. Okay, and this water, the water in the kettle, represents all the very hard to explain details of my life that I need to get out there and let people know. Okay, now if we take a torch to this kettle, and it's all of a sudden it just heats right up. Okay, what happens is the water in the kettle, it spews all over everybody. It burns their skin. They run away, and they abandon me. It runs them all away. However, if instead you have this kettle full of water, again, the water representing all the stuff about my life that I need to get out to the people close to me, and you heat it up very slowly, half a degree centigrade at a time. Okay, what happens then is at every point the water is just as cool as it was a minute before. That there's a very, very, very gradual increase in temperature. Nobody's ever scared because again, every moment that occurs is there's not much difference between the moment before. And then the kettle slowly comes to a boil. The water boils out, and nobody's scared at all. And all that I need to get out there, all the stuff I need to tell to people to understand my life, it's out there. Okay, but what's happened? In particular, due to Wells Fargo, is a bunch of details about my life have been spewed all over in this other scenario. They spew all the details of my life. They had no reason to do it. As I'll get into in these videos, Wells Fargo committed an invasion of my privacy when I worked for them, and again, they have destroyed my life. But all these details about me, they got them all at once, and they also got them in a very, very uncensored, very, very hateful, exaggerated, falsified, very cruelly exaggerated version. And so I guess I'll go ahead and cut this video off, but I'll make this the introduction video, where I just say that that I'm going to tell you the story about my life, about my history as a troubled youth, about my history as being stigmatized for mental illness, and ultimately we get into how Wells Fargo destroyed my life and massacred my existence. And there's a lot to learn here. Okay, I have a very, very, very unique life, and I have, in particular, I have strived for many years to come to terms with what it means to be a human being. One of the things that I want to get into in these videos is that my father was a psychopath. Now, he was never diagnosed with this, but I guarantee you that had he been evaluated, he meets the criteria for sure. He told me later in his life, not long before he died. That was his perception. He thought himself to be a psychopath, and his blood runs in my veins. It's 43 chromosomes, 46 chromosomes. 23 of those are his, and I inherited some of his deficits, and with that and some other deficits I have, like for instance, I have autism spectrum disorder. That I'm someone I've really, really, really had to reflect on my behavior, work on myself very hard, and really, really, I've really put effort into what it means to be a human being, and what it means to have a moral life and to live a morally upright life. And also with I learned a lot of lessons about my drug abuse. I learned a lot of lessons there. And again, it's a very, very unique life, and I don't mean to be vain. We've all got unique lives, but I've got a very, very unique life. And I think if you stick around and listen to this, that you can learn something. You can learn something about mental illness. You can learn something about what it means to be a moral human being. You can learn about drug use, and maybe you'll understand better, so that you can help the young people in your life not get involved in this drug abuse lifestyle. And I think I have a very compelling story. But this will be the intro video, and in the next video I'll get into my history as a disadvantaged youth, and I'll start out with when I was born. So I was born November 1st, 1980. My father was a high school dropout. My mother was a high school dropout. And both poor from poor families. I had to be separated from my father around the time I was 3 years old. My mother left him because he was manufacturing drugs. Manufacturing illegal drugs in our residence and using them. And also, he had beaten my mother up on a couple occasions. And so my mother didn't want me around this environment. And I have very, very, very severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And that relates, that's the abuse that Wells Fargo has dealt me. They've hit me with a crime spree. And so when I do this, please excuse me. But we moved in with my grandparents when I was 3. And sometime around this time, around ages 3 and 4, that the sexual abuse begins. And I didn't realize that it was abuse. I didn't realize what had occurred until I was in my late teens, until I was about 18. It which is right before I went to the mental hospital. But I'll tell you what I knew about this then when it happened. Is I had these very strange dreams where a witch would come to me at bedtime while I was asleep, and the dreams were very strange in that my senses worked just as they did when I was waking. So I remember the first one I remember was when I was about 3 or 4. It was probably about close to 4, I think. But I remembered this, and again, my whole life I recall this as a dream, where this witch comes and gets me and tells me she's a good witch. She's not a bad witch, and she takes me in through the house. That I'm asleep with my mother. She gets me out of bed, and she's taking me through the house telling me this. And I notice that the witch has a lot of cats. And I say, my grandmother has a lot of cats. She says, well, I'm a lot like your grandmother, but I'm not her. Now that's where my memory cuts off of that incident. And there was another incident that I remembered, a similar dream, or same dream-like state. It's like I'm having a dream, but my senses work. When I'm in bed, and somebody's coming with a witch is over me, I wake up and I'm kind of frozen. There's a witch looking at me, and I'm being sexually abused. I always thought that this was the strangest. These dreams, they always seemed strange to me that I had my dreams. Okay, but my whole life up until I was 18, I remembered these as dreams. I'll go ahead and tell you what I eventually figured out, and I'll get into this into the later videos. But these dreams were not dreams. This was my grandmother. There's something very bad wrong with her, and she was sexually abusing me, and I was in a dissociative state while this was happening to me as a young kid. And I think this abuse went on probably till I was 8 or 9 years old. Even after we moved out of the house, we'd still be back there at times. And I have reasons. I mean, I'll probably get into it later. The reasons I have to believe that the abuse continued to those ages. Now I'm going to have to cut this video off, and I'll start another one and keep going. These videos are going to be short because I can't concentrate for long at all due to my severe. I've got very severe, very acute post-traumatic stress disorder, and I cannot concentrate for long at all. Now, one thing that I failed to mention in that last video is that I was also born with a condition called autism spectrum disorder without accompanying intellectual impairment. Okay, so I'm autistic, and I wasn't diagnosed until age 35. I didn't realize that I had this condition until I was in my early to mid 30s, and that's why I went to get diagnosed and to be evaluated for diagnosis. And the psychologist she issued a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder without accompanying intellectual impairments, and she said that I would have met what was formerly known, the criteria for a condition formerly known as Asperger's disorder. But there's something about this, I think it's this horrific abuse that I suffered that somehow left me feeling kind of isolated in my autism, or what contributed to this. But somehow it's like there's always been a thing with me and other people, and how this manifests itself as I'm a kid is one of the ways I see it manifesting itself is I used to speculate. I can remember doing this when I was 5 years old. If everyone else in the world was just a bunch of aliens, they were just planted there, and I was the only real human, and everything kind of revolved around me, that everybody else is just a fake alien. It was like somehow I just felt a disconnect with other people. And over the course of my life, this would be something that comes up about me being with other people, that I would be disrespectful of other people. Somehow I didn't understand how to be around other people, and I tied to somehow that I've got this kind of fundamental block, or this fundamental misunderstanding, this fundamental, again, at 5 years old, I can remember wondering, is everybody else even real? Okay. But as I'm a kid, if I recall right, there was a few times back and forth that I go back and forth. We live with Dad again, it seems like, and then I eventually settle in. Finally, I stay in Roe Mountain with my grandparents, and I go to a school called Cloudland Elementary School. in Roan Mountain, Tennessee. And it was apparent from the get-go that I was kind of a bright student. Now, I didn't realize this until I was in first grade. I didn't start figuring it out until I was in first grade. I started figuring out that, hey, I'm smarter than a lot of the people in here. But like in kindergarten, for instance, they had a test they gave us at the end of the year where they would have us count. And, some of the kids could count to 10, some of them could count to 20 or whatever. And they had to stop me at 100, and I can remember telling them, I can count to 1,000. And there was me and this other kid with the only two kids that could read a complete paragraph. They had us read this thing. Me and this kid were the only ones, and I can remember too when we would have these. We would do math tests, I guess you'd call them. We had math assignments where we got a piece of paper and we got simple one-digit addition. I remember having those as we were being taught math, and I would always be the first to finish in the class, and I could do the math in my head. And the other kids would do this thing where it's like they got 4 plus 2, and so they'd hold 4 fingers. They go 1, 2, and then they count and they have 6 fingers. I would see the other kids doing this, and I had no idea what the hell they were doing. Puzzled me to death as to what in the hell they're doing. I was about 5th grade when it dawned on me what they were doing. They're doing their math like this. But me, I would just look at the problem. I would see it. I would know the answer. I would write it down, and I would be done. I don't mean to brag. It's just how it is, and it has to do, I'm sure, with my autism, and it's also also due to my autism is the way that I'm kind of an uneven person. That with stuff I'm either really, really good at it or I'm really, really bad at it. That's how it tends to work. And so we played Duck, Duck, Goose and stuff like this. Like I would be, I was always the one that got picked. That I was very, very athletically incapable. I couldn't run fast. I was clumsy and poorly coordinated. All this stuff. And that was another thing that stuck out about me is how physically uncoordinated I was. How I wasn't good at sports. That was apparent from fairly early on. But again, it was I didn't fully realize that I was a notch above in intelligence a lot of people until I was in first grade, and I started to notice that they gave us these quizzes with the math, and so now we're doing 2-digit addition, 2-digit multiplication, 2-digit subtraction, and all this stuff. And my papers always have a 95 or 100, and the other kids wouldn't. But that was another thing that really defined my life was this thing where I'm intellectually gifted, I guess that you would say, and I was perceived to be very, very, very profoundly intellectually gifted by a lot of people. And I went to church. My family was very, very, very religious on both sides. My grandmother was very, very, very religious. My mother was very, very religious. We were fundamentalist Christians. So we believed in the literal interpretation of the Bible, that the earth is 6,000 years old, all this stuff. And it was another instance of this about me being intellectually gifted, is the preacher was amazed at how much I knew about the Bible from a young age. So I can remember coming to church meetings, on Wednesday night when I'm 8 years old, and they're asking these questions about the Bible, or they got this verse and it says this. Now, what does this mean? What do you interpret this? And it's like I'm raising my hand to answer these questions more than all the other adults in the church. All the adults in the church combined. I'm answering more of these questions, and the preacher's like, "Well, you want to come here? You want to come here and preach the sermon yourself? I mean, you know all this stuff." Again, I'm 8 years old, and I look back at my days going to church very, very fondly. The religion nowadays seems different. It seems to be like something to kind of get high on. That you go to this church, you go to you tune in on TV to whoever you listen to, and it's like there to pump you up and to make you feel good about yourself and to talk about all the blessings that God's going to dump all over you. This is despite the fact that you live like hell, Monday through Saturday. And when I went to church, so we believed in literal hellfire. That's one thing. You die a sinner, unrepentant, you go to hell. Okay, you burn for an eternity, scorching flesh, brimstone in your nose, the whole 9 yards. And we were taught that you had to live different than everyone else. So we don't watch rated R movies. We don't even watch a lot of PG-13 rated movies because what's on them. We don't listen to the same music. We don't play these role-playing fantasy games, stuff like this. And of course now, as an adult, I see nothing wrong. I think these fantasy role playing games are a fine thing. They're good. Kids enjoy them. And I've watched. Of course, I don't watch movies a lot, but when I do, I mean, I've next to never watch movies, but I'll watch a rated R movie or whatever. I'm a little bit different now. But what strikes me about this, looking back, is the way that that we went to church for moral instruction. Okay, we went to learn how to be a moral human being, to be a human being with morals that lives a decent life. And part of the bargain was you didn't get to live like everyone else, and you had to try. Okay, you had to resist the temptation to do the things that are wrong that everyone else does. So this movie that's at the movie theater might sound like a really good movie, but you exert your will and you resist. You don't go there. Okay, you don't talk with curse words like everyone else does. That the person you are, that you have to put effort into being who you are. And if you're sitting in that church and there's someone who's an atheist that lives a few blocks up the road from the church, and you've got a checklist of all the stuff the Bible tells you to do, and then a checklist of all the stuff that the Bible tells you not to do, that you ought to be clicking off more check boxes on the stuff that the Bible says you should do than the atheist, and you should be clicking off less than the stuff the Bible says that you shouldn't do. Okay, it's not something to go there and get high and to live like the rest of the world 6 days a week, and then come on Sunday to be told about all the blessings and the miracles that are going to happen for you. And hey, that. And I even see this, and I don't mean to be pejorative or to take shots at people, because I mean, hey, life's tough, and whatever makes you feel good makes you feel good. But I see a lot of times on these new age, when I look at these clips on YouTube and stuff, there's this thing of don't let your enemies get in the way of you getting what God has in store for you in life. Okay, it's like, don't let the jealousy and the envy of the people who have less than you stop you from hoarding. Hoard all of life's blessings for yourself. Okay, so you're going to live like hell 6 days a week. You're going to come to church, and after you live like hell, and what we're going to give you a stern moral admonishments to make sure that you hoard all of the goodies that life has to offer for yourself, and don't feel bad about it because your neighbor has less. I mean, this is crazy. And I can't remember where I was going with this, but I view the religion that I participate in, which I no longer participate in religion at all, but I view it as something very, very different than what goes on today, and I view it as something that's very, very at least this notion, and I'll get back to this as I go on, because this is something that I realize later in life, as I'm in my 20s and on. That this notion comes back to me, and I revisit this notion where to be a moral human being, to do what is right, involves exerting your willpower and trying hard and resisting who you might naturally be inclined to be. That you in default mode is not good enough. And if it's not hard for you to be the person that you are, so if it doesn't take effort to conduct yourself the way you conduct yourself in your daily affairs, then that's a pretty good sign that there might be something wrong. Now in my early life, from ages of 5 to 8, lived with my grandparents, with my mother. I was the center of my mother's world, and I was doused with toys and video games. And that would be another thing that would come to be a feature of my youth. I was obsessed and addicted to video games. And Christmas time comes, and my God, did I ever have the biggest pile of shit you've ever seen under the Christmas tree? With my name on it, which I'm thankful. My family, they never. Very early on, I knew that Santa Claus. By the time I'm 5 years old, I know that Santa Claus is not a real thing. And I think that's a good thing to do for kids. Not wrong either way, but I would rather have not been told that Santa Claus was true. But I did really good in school, and of course, when I get my Nintendo, that's when I start doing worse in school. But so I go from being like a straight A student to an AB student, and then my mother meets my stepfather. Now, my stepfather had some issues, And my mom, eventually they get married, and things deteriorate very, very fast. And the situation becomes a really, really hard situation at home with my stepfather. I had a huge list of chores. It wasn't even a list. It was on a poster board in my bedroom. It would take me hours to get my chores done every day. My stepfather was an alcoholic, drank. He was very, very abusive. He had been physically abused extremely severely as a child, and so he didn't believe in physically punishing children. And kind of the way he seemed to see it was, as long as he doesn't beat on us like he was beat on, that that he can do whatever. And of course he would threaten, so he never did it, but he threatened it, and man, I was scared to death of him. And for instance, I had this thing when I'm 9, 10 years old, that I forget my jacket on the bus a lot, and this makes him mad. And one day I came home, I forgot my jacket on the bus, and he asked me, "Where's your jacket at?" I told him I forgot on the bus. And he points at the corner of the room, the corner of the kitchen. He says, "You get in there and you stand in there in that goddamn corner, okay?" And he makes me stand in the corner of the kitchen between the refrigerator and the wall. And he's sitting there yelling at me for 6 hours. I'm forced to stand like this, and he would yell at me over and over. "You move 1 square F an inch, and I'll beat the living shit out of you." That I'm a 9, 10-year-old kid, just having rigidly set in the corner, stand in the corner of the room, told if I move 1 square F an inch, I'll get the hell beat out of me, and being cursed and berated. And then my mother comes home, and she's got a pizza that she picked up. And so now he's mad because I forgot my jacket on the bus, and she's rewarding me with pizza. She didn't even know, but she's rewarding me with pizza. And so we get in a big fight. We had to run out of the house barefoot and drive up to my grandparents' house. This was something we'd have to do here and there, on and off with my stepfather, as he would get extremely abusive, and we'd be fearing for our lives, and we'd have to run out of the house barefoot and drive to my grandparents' house. Now, as these problems at home are happening, I start to misbehave in school more and more. I eventually move out of the house, so I go back to live with my grandparents. I'm living with my grandparents, no longer with my mother and stepfather in their place, but I'm still going to the same school system I went to. And I became such a behavior problem that they were threatening to send me to juvenile prison at one point. That I almost got charged and sent to a juvenile prison. But what they did instead was they assigned me an outpatient psychologist to counsel me for my behavior. It's a man named Ray Powers. And Ray Powers, if you're out there, you have no idea what you mean to me. Okay, I mean, there are more days that go by that I think about you than there are that aren't, most likely. I mean, I don't keep track, but the influence that you were on my life was really, really something. And he counseled me. Ray counseled me for my behavior, and I was one of the rare ones that a lot of times when you get these kids that are really, really mean, like I was, and you put them in therapy, behavioral for their behavior. The kid doesn't cooperate. They try to manipulate the therapist. They lie. They don't do what the therapist says. I was different, and Ray could tell, very early on, that I tell the truth and that I do. We had a very productive, very beneficial therapeutic relationship. So I'm going to talk more about my behavior problems and about this outpatient therapist that they assigned me to, this outpatient counselor. Is that I had very, very, very severe behavior problems. That I was getting detentions left and right. It was 1 year in school. I was suspended for 37 days out of the school year. I got 37 days of suspension. In this incident that happened where they threatened to send me to juvie jail, I was suspended outside suspension. I was not permitted to come to school. I'm sorry, my mind's fried here. OSS, whatever that stands for. It stands for out of school suspension. That's it. Yeah, out of school suspension. I got 10 days, and what happened there is I brought Tylenol to school and told some children on the school bus this Tylenol was drugs, making it out to be an illegal drug. And when you have something, you say it's an illegal drug, even if it's not, you still get still punished for it. And this created a big hoorah. But this guy, this counselor that I saw, Ray Powers, he specializes in the kids that are like, these are the ones that are impossible to reach. So I've been seeing the school counselors. They couldn't do anything for me, and so here's let's bring out the big guns. Let's refer them to Ray Powers. And these are the kind of kids that give reason that they might give society some problems when they grow up. Like I say, the character of the nature of our relationship changed. Let me explain how that kind of worked, okay? And actually, how do I, how should I introduce this? Okay, well, let me tell you about something else you might find interesting. It was around about the same time that I got this, that they referred me to Ray Powers, this outside school counselor, who was a very good counselor. Now, there was another adult in my life, or there was an adult, someone much older than me, who had taught me about using condoms. And again, at this point, I'm 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. And I was given a PhD, so it was everything from how to put the condom on. If the girl gets irritated, that means you need to change your spermicide. How to take the condom, to make sure that the condom doesn't fall off and not protect you. That the latex ones are better than the lambskin or whatever the other thing was. At the time, there were two or three popular materials that were made out of, and but he tells me the latex is better and use the latex, and he gives me scripts, to tell the girl if she says, "Hey, this doesn't feel right, it's not natural," and I say, "Well, no, this is to protect me and protect you." He gives me, so I'm given a PhD on how to use a condom and have safe sex by this adult. Now, who in God's name, who is so depraved? What in the hell is wrong with anybody that would teach a kid of that age? What the hell does a 13-year-old kid have any business knowing all this stuff about how to have sex safely? Why should we be talking with him about having sex at all? Who is this? Who's this depraved individual? That's this counselor that I'm seeing. Okay. Now, why is this behavioral therapist? I'm doing this very early on. Why is he doing this? Where he's teaching me all about having safe sex and giving me this PhD education, this PhD in condoms education. My mother had asked him to talk to me about the importance of waiting until you're married. And so here, the plot thickens again. He's told me about having sex, and he's ran a full-on scam with my mother. And what he does, by the way, when I go in there, he says, he gives me the PhD in condoms lesson. He says, and here, what happened is your mother wanted me to have a conversation with you about the importance of waiting until you're married. And so I've given you this lecture instead, and I want you to tell her that, hey, me and Ray had that talk that you asked for. Okay, and so again, he's ran a full-on scam. I'm a co-conspirator in this scam. He's ran on my mother. What's this guy doing? Well, again, I've got to reassert, this is a brilliant counselor and therapist who helped me tremendously. And what's going on here is this guy's not stupid. He knows the kind of raw material that tends to come through his door. I can infer the kind of raw material that comes from his door through this test that I took when I first started coming, my first visits. They have a test where I circle the answer. And it's got 50 questions. I circle the answer. And let me tell you about, some of the questions on this. It's like asking you stuff like, do you have sex with farm animals? Do you have sex with animals? Do you compulsively, something about compulsively setting stuff on fire? I remember being a kid, and I'm a mean little shit when I'm 13 years old taking this test. I remember thinking, like, what in God's name is all that's out of this world for me, even as a mean kid, the questions that this test was asking you. Another thing is this question about do you have sex with animals, that question is not on there for me. Okay, I'm nowhere in the same universe as this, but that question is also not on there just for nobody. Okay, that this guy, that kids come through his door that are so severely disturbed that this has to be a concern that he addresses to see if they have sex with animals or not, or if they compulsively set stuff on fire. And I can't remember the rest of the questions, but it was a lot of very, very, very extreme stuff that blew me away then. Okay, and the typical raw material that comes through his door, you are wasting your time completely trying to tell them about waiting until they're married to have sex. And so what this therapist is doing is he's there to help me and improve my behavior, and he's also in damage control mode for society, because what he's thinking is if I don't tell this kid, I got to teach him how how to have safe sex. Because if I don't, 8 years from now, he's going to be 21. He's going to have about 4 kids by 3 different women. He's going to be doing nothing for him, and God only knows what else he's going to be up to. That the kids that come through his door, they tend to be like this, future pathologically selfish human being of America club member, and he's got a really, and there's another. I'll give you another example of he told me about having respect for people, and how important that was because I was very disrespectful to the teachers. And he told me, Clint, the reason you're polite to people and the reason you treat people with respect is because it makes it easier for you to deal with them. They're easier to deal with for you. Now, what is this? It's upside down and backwards. The reason you treat other people with respect is because other people are important, other people matter, other people deserve to be treated with respect. But this is, again, him in damage control mode. He knows that he's dealing with this future pathologically selfish human being of America club member, that tends to come through his door. That he phrases everything in terms of, have safe sex because that's the best thing for you. Be respectful towards others because that's what maximizes your well-being in life. He frames everything like this. Now, what happens though? It's very early on in our therapeutic relationship. He starts to notice that I tell him the truth about everything. That as much as I lied outside of his office, of his counseling sessions, that I told him the truth about everything, and that I was going to do what he said. And the nature of our relationship changed, and we had a very, very, very productive, a very, 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 while he was counseling me, my grades went up. I started turning in my homework. I was doing chores for my grandparents that I needed, that he assigned me to do. Things were going a whole lot better. Now, during the same time, I'd been seeing my grandfather on my dad's side. He and I had been separated. And I started seeing him around age 11. And what happens there is my grandfather, he really takes me under his wing, and he teaches me a lot of stuff. And I'll be a little angel at my grandfather's house, but then I'll still be messing up in school and things like this. But this behavioral therapist, combined with him and my grandfather, which my grandfather had a preoccupation with teaching me to work hard, how to work, and teaching me a work ethic, and teaching me to be honest. That was the preoccupation that my paternal grandfather had when I went to visit him. And these were very, very, very extremely positive influences in my life. And it's perhaps the fact that I was doing so well when I was with this behavioral therapist that they thought it was okay to discontinue this therapy kind of early on. By the time I'm 14, I think about 15, they discontinued this therapy. And what happens is I start to get in trouble very, very, very fast after that. Okay, and then there's another significant thing that happens during this time period between ages 11 and 15. And I want to say right now that there are people out here that that might be hurt by what I'm saying and to the story that I'm telling. Okay, this is something that the public is going to have to know about my life due to what's happened to me. Okay, the keep my life as a secret has been made impossible by this bank that's terrorized the living hell of me and invaded every millimeter of my existence. So I'm sorry. Okay, but horrible, horrible rumors have been started about me, about this, and I have no choice but to tell. But there was a girl that lived in a neighborhood not far from mine that was close enough that I could walk to visit. And there were some occasions where we were engaged in sexual behavior. Now, the first one was when I was about 11 or 12. And I talked her into letting me fill her up. This girl's about a year and a half younger than I am. And I felt awkward. It was kind of on the moment impulse there. And it felt awkward and didn't happen again for a while. But I started to and this is again as I've been entering puberty and stuff like this that we would do stuff with the girls. They come out of the shower, we'd hijack them and take off their towel. And different stuff that we would do, and you stick with the ones that you can get far with or whatever. I'd been on a regular basis, not a too regular basis, but multiple occurrences. And of course, I'd be trying this all the time. Sometimes she would let me, sometimes she wouldn't. We'd engage in like heavy petting type stuff. At the time, I viewed it as kind of as just something that we were doing wrong, that that wasn't necessarily wrong, but I didn't want other people to know about it. And this girl in particular, she was a target for this type of thing for whatever reason. She told me all kinds of other kids that were visiting her house, that they're staying over with her sibling or something like this, and or they live in her neighborhood or whatever. And she was involved in a lot of this stuff. And there came a time when she told about me, told her dad, and I was not allowed to be alone with her in the house after that. And she had been she had been very very upset. Now, when this happened, my main thing was I didn't want. I was ashamed, and I was mad, and so I lied. I lied and said that it didn't happen, which obviously what she said happened about me filling her up and stuff like this. And I've starting around age 20 is when I started to beat myself up over this. I started to re-examine my life really intensely around age 20. And I started kind of beating myself up over this, and over the years, it's been something hard that I have a trouble distinguishing if it was abuse or if it wasn't. Because the second time that this started happening, when it was told on, I was 14 years old, and again, she's about a year and a half, year and 8 months, something like that, younger than me, and all kinds of boys were up to the same thing with her and with the different girls in the school. I mean, it's a very common thing, at least for us in our area at the time, for kids to be doing this. And so that's one half of it is, to me, if it's a deviant behavior, then a lot of people aren't doing it. Okay, so if a lot of people are doing it, it is. But then again, I think that what I was doing with this girl might have been very, very hurtful. Now it puzzled me though, and it puzzled me for years as to why she tells about me and not about all the other kids, or not about because she had told me there were other kids that she was doing more substantial, more serious stuff with, and so why did she tell about me, and not about them? Okay, and this, by the way, this mutates into a rumor that I quote unquote raped my neighbor's daughters. What this gets mutates into. Which to that I'll say, I mean, obviously I didn't do that severe. I would apply psychological pressure to this girl, but every last thing we did was consensual. All this heavy petting type stuff. That was 99% of it. And but I still feel very very bad about the potential that I cause this girl pain. But this is another. By the way, I have another quality. This is a strange thing about me is that questions that aren't answered. They get stuck in my head, and I will think about the same thing for 10 years. I'm not going to think about it every single day for 10 years, but all this stuff will get recycled through my head. And I recalled that not long before she told about me, she had told me that she didn't want to do stuff anymore because there was another boy that had quote tried to have sex with her, and she spoke of this as a forced attempt that had failed. And what I realized was there's no way that this girl could have fended herself off. That this guy, this boy that did this, he didn't fail. And I later learned that she had been someone much closer to home had been raping her on a regular, on a very very regular basis. That was the begin. Around the time she told on me was the beginning of that behavior. And what it amounts to is I was the low hanging fruit. I was the weakling that it was safe to tell on. And her motivation for telling on me, telling about me, however you want to put it, was to get attention brought to this broader situation. And unfortunately, she failed. That this other abuse that she was subjected to continued on and on. And I believe she was scared of this particular boy. And again, if this girl's out there, I know, sweetheart, God Almighty, I know the pain that you've had in life, and I'm sorry for every bit of it. Okay, and I'm sorry that I just had to tell, because I told vague details, and I hope nobody, figures out who I'm talking about, or if they do, if they say anything to you about it. That again, my story is best left not told. But what I will tell you, sweetheart, is that you are someone who deserves to be treated with respect and kindness, and to be treated as someone whose needs and opinions and thoughts and feelings matter. And I am deeply sorry for any and every time that I've treated you any different than that. I'm very, very sorry for any time I did that, and I'm sorry for everyone else. The other people that won't tell you they're sorry, I'm sorry for them too, sweetheart. Okay? And it wasn't you, sweetheart. It was the rest of us. Okay? And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I am deeply, deeply, deeply sorry. And I hope that the day comes that I can make it better for you. Any hurt that I've given you, I hope that I can make it better. And I wish that I would be in a position one day that I can make it better for all the people who don't care to say they're sorry. And this is something I want you to know that again, if you're out there, that of course I've reached out to this girl numerous times trying to apologize to her, and she doesn't. At one point she was talking back, and then she doesn't talk back very fast, and I can't get in touch with her. But that's the potential for the great wrong that I've done in my life that happened there. But there's also another element to it. That I was kind of, again, I was the safe one. I wasn't the one that's doing the most significant abuse. If it was abuse, if it was abuse, I wasn't doing the most significant thing. I was the one that it was easy to tell about, because then I was physically frail, and people told me that some of these other people in her neighborhood, that their parents worked with her parents and stuff like this, and that's why she didn't tell on them, because they were doing more significant stuff. But that's again a very, very significant thing in my life, and I'll continue in the next video. Okay, and a minor detail I'll add to that last video is, according to this rumor that I quote unquote raped my neighbor's daughter, this girl's not my neighbor. That's another minor detail that's wrong there. But going back to this therapy, we discontinue around the time I'm 14, 15 years old, about 15 I think it was, because I was doing so well, and this turned out to be a mistake because I go downhill very fast. I start having to have more behavior problems, and my grades start to tank at school. And also, around this time, around age 15, I'm starting to be exposed to a social life outside of school. I had a friend that had his driver's license. He was a year older than me. He could drive us around, and I had at least one friend that was old enough to buy alcohol. And this guy bought some alcohol for a party he was having at his house, and he didn't want it after the party. He had no use for it. And so he's going to give it away, and so I end up taking it, and I end up taking this alcohol to school, and this causes a big shitstorm at the high school. I get caught with this alcohol. Me and this other kid that came out, we both showed up for school late, and I told him I have the alcohol in my book bag, and he wanted some of it, and so we go to the bathroom, we got this alcohol, and we get caught, and there was also a perception, I can't remember if it actually happened or not, but there was a perception that I had threatened a teacher. Now I recall I threatened this kid from New York that was, we were always picking on him, and I can't recall if I actually threatened the teacher, if the teacher just thought that this threat that was directed at him was directed at her. For sure I had the alcohol. And so I get kicked out of school / I quit the same day. Okay, so I'm kicked out for, I can't remember how many days it was they're going to kick me out for, but this, and I bullshitted him about the alcohol. I bullshitted him and convinced him that I didn't have the alcohol, didn't have any alcohol. But then this thing with the teacher, I can't remember how long they're going to kick me out for, but I just quit. And not long before I quit school, I got a job at a restaurant, a pizza restaurant. And it was around the time I quit school, that I started playing pool real seriously. I loved playing billiards, and I wanted to be a professional 9-ball player. Now it's around this age. Again, I had this alcohol at this party, and I went to other parties that the kids were at, and I started experimenting with alcohol myself. It was around into age 16. I'm about 3/4 of the year through age 16 that I started using marijuana, and so I became a recreational drug user, and this eventually progressed into me using LSD. and also the psilocybin mushrooms. And of course, there are all kinds of different drugs that I tried, but I did a fair amount, 6, 7, 8 times of this LSD and the psilocybin mushrooms, and I end up one of the unlucky ones with this drug. When you experiment with these drugs, they carry risk, and one of the risks associated with these hallucinogens is they can trigger the onset of an enduring mental illness that you will have for the rest of your life, and that's what happened with me. That I lost my mind totally and completely, and I had to be hospitalized, and I was in a mental hospital for 72 days, and they basically give you medications to get your brain chemistry back on track, and then you take those medications. You'll take some medication for the rest of your life to keep your brain chemistry regulated. And this would turn out to be the defining event of my life. Now I'm going to go over this again in the next videos. I'm going to go over the same segment of time when I am going to this mental hospital. I'm going to go over it a few times because there's a few layers deep here as to what's going on at this point in my life. At this time, I'm aged 18. One very significant thing about this time period, when I go to the hospital during the same time period, this is when I realized that these dreams that I had my whole life were not dreams. And I realized, and then what happened is I was acting so crazy and so out of control that one of my friends had suggested to me that maybe something happened to you when you were a kid, because they're trying to figure out what's driving this behavior. And I started to reflect on these dreams that I'd had my whole life. That I'd recalled my whole life, and I realized that this was not a dream, that I was in a dissociative state, and my grandmother was sexually abusing me while she wore a Halloween mask. Now, at one point during this time, my family had left out this Halloween mask to see if because they're worried about me too because of the way I'm behaving, and they leave out this Halloween mask because they want to provoke a conversation. Is what's going on there, is they're trying to help me. And they think that I'm just going to be calm about this. Now, what happens is this abuse, for whatever reason, it's like a repressed memory. Okay, that I've got those 2 memories of these dreams, but the rest of it was repressed. And I see this mask. I'm in my grandparents' house, and in their bedroom, I always play my Nintendo set up in their bedroom, and I'm in the bedroom. And I see this mask out, and I see this mask, and I'm fascinated with it. It's like it has a hypnotic effect on me. And I go and I look at it, and I started getting flooded with all these memories of being abused. And what happens is I put it down, and I leave the room, and I instantly forget that I've even seen this mask and all that stuff. It's like it's instantaneously. It's like there's some kind of black hole in my mind where this stuff lives. And this had happened before this guy had suggested this to me, and I recalled that as well. When he says this, I start recalling seeing this mask in the room. And this is a good time to talk about something else that occurs with me and my personality. That when you are sexually abused at an early age, like I was, especially, because again, I believe this abuse started around age 3 and 4. Went on until I was maybe age 8 or 9, I would guess. But when you are young, that a kid that size, you come hardwired with a belief that the adults in your life, your caregivers, are perfect. Okay, they're like deities. They're never wrong. They're all powerful. They're right. And so when this happens to you, that my caregiver, that there's something wrong with them, this is not an option. And you will infer from that there's something very, very bad wrong with you. And when you're a man, you will have these self-perceptions that they're evil, and you're disturbed, and you're twisted. And all of these self-perceptions will manifest themselves throughout your life. Okay, and you will do this kind of unconsciously. And so this is another theme of my life growing up. And yet another theme to this is that I was also, as a young man, I could be very, very polite and respectful, and I would be like kind of charming as a kid. And so we have this kind of double life where I'm mean at school. I talk about crazy, disturbing sounding stuff. Again, I'm talking because that's how I see myself. I've been subconsciously designed to see myself as an evil, disturbed, twisted, sick person by this abuse. And I would speak about this. So I'll be in school talking about, Charles Manson and stuff like this. All this evil stuff I'll be talking about. I'll be misbehaving within in the home of certain adults. I would be like this little angel, and all the adults would brag on me about how polite and respectful and kind, and I had this quality too that I would speak. It was like the adults would remark that I was not like a kid. I was like another adult, because I'd go in their house, I'd be staying at their house, and I'd talk to them about adult issues like abortion and different political issues, or the Bible, or whatever, that I seem to have very, very grown up interests. But if you were to talk to people who knew me back during those times of my life, from 10, 11, on into my teens, a little bit into my 20s, you would meet a lot of people that remember this about me, that I seem to be kind of preoccupied, or I would speak in things to make you think that I'm evil or disturbed or twisted, all this type of stuff. And that was, again, I osmosized this perception through the abuse that I'd suffered, that I'm some kind of evil person, and that's why I say this stuff. And so right before I was in the hospital, I was saying all kinds of extremely sick, twisted, disturbing sounding stuff. And the fact that I had entered, when you leave reality, when you leave reality in a mental health episode, they call that going into a psychosis. And the fact that I'm in what's called a manic depressive psychosis. When you're manic depressive, when you're a manic depressive psychosis, you become kind of this grander, larger than life version of yourself. Okay, so I'm speaking of myself as I'm like some kind of omnipotent, evil, and this kind of way of behaving that I had would be very, very, very disturbing to people. What you got to understand is, at this point in my life, I am not a person. Okay, I am a brain that is spun out of control. And I've been getting very, very ill for a long time before I was ever hospitalized. And so 5 months before I was hospitalized, I was already at the point that I needed treatment. The problem is that people in my life, I didn't know that, hey, these drug use that we're up to can cause somebody to lose it like this, and they need mental health treatments. And so during this whole 5 months that I should have been hospitalized, I'm doing more and more and more drugs that are putting me farther and further and further outside of reality. And then it's complicated by the fact that, again, I had these self-perceptions of that I'm an evil, sick, twisted, disturbed. All of this, everything that's bad, I perceived myself to be, and I thought that that's how others would see me as well. And so I would speak in those terms. Another significant detail, which actually I want to go back to that last video again. This is a behavior pattern that I had for a long time over my life, where I would say these disturbing, twisted, evil-sounding things. But there was another thing going on when I was hospitalized around the same time. Was that the police, that I had police officers investigating me. Now, I had delusions. When you have a psychosis and you have false beliefs, those are called delusions. I had delusions about all kinds of people being police officers after me. But there was one that was actually, for a fact, this guy was a police officer. I found out later. I confirmed later for sure. But as I'm losing my mind, I'm kind of on to this guy. That I put together things about his behavior that don't add up. That this guy, he came across as this eccentric, crazy old man that liked to party. I went to his house, and we smoked marijuana, and these guys had alcohol, and stuff like this. It was after the fact that I put together stuff about his behavior that this guy was doing some kind of investigation. He's a police officer. He's a police officer somehow doing something. Okay, now it was actually before this, before I went over to his house. Someone that I knew had told me that this guy was a police officer. I didn't think anything of it when this guy said this to me, but somehow this guy that I knew, he knew the whole time. I don't know. I don't remember thinking much about that for a very long time. But I was pretty darn convinced about this guy's behavior. He's a police officer, and it was many, many years later. I confirmed it. I seen him. He was staying in a condo of this guy that was a police officer. He was borrowing his condo. That they were connected somehow, and this kind of made it obvious with all the other stuff that I'd put together about this guy. That, for instance, well, actually, I won't get into it. Um, but this thing where I'm on the ball and I catch it. I figure out this guy's a police officer. Um, I do this through something called cognitive empathy. It's a big factor in how I figure things out. That cognitive empathy is when you have a sense of how people think, and also I think kind of like a detective. I use deductive logic, but I can figure things out based on not a whole lot of information a lot of times, and that was largely how I figured out this guy was a police officer, and the people at work that I worked with and other people in my personal life were kind of taken aback because eventually one of them had seen the same guy out on a lake with an ATF shirt on. And so they're kind of like blown away that I figured this guy out, and I started to come across as like some kind of evil genius that they thought that this person had known the whole time, which that was the real me, but they thought that was the fake me, and this new person that I am in this horribly dilapidated mental condition that I'm in, that's the real me, that I've shown my true self, and I'm some kind of evil genius, whatever, and of course with all the disturbing, incredibly, I was talking about very, very extreme acts of violence, all kinds of stuff, which again, all I'm doing is I'm ranting and raving. There is no rhyme or reason to my behavior. There's no sense to be made out of any of it. There was absolutely zero chance that I carry out any of the stuff that I would threaten, but I would say all kinds of extreme, disturbing sounding, violent stuff. And so this had the people that I work with, the people in my personal life, this had them completely, they didn't know what the hell to think. But that was their initial impression, was that this person that I had been the whole time that they'd known, that was like the fake version of me, and now I've revealed my true colors, and I'm this ranting and raving, evil genius, whatever kind of person. All right, so we're picking back up with the hospital, and I was in this hospital. I was in absolutely terrible condition. They had a place to let us go outside. After I'd been there a few days, they allowed me to go outside in what they call the yards. I would go out there for 30 minutes, and I would go out there and sit on a bench, and I would be hallucinating that all the people there were talking about me. I'd hear the people talking like, "Look at him! Look at that guy! Look at that guy! Is he dying? Is he dead? Is he dying? Is he dying?" Stuff like this. That everybody out there in the yards was talking about me. When I first got in there, I was mad when they closed the doors. I realized I'm locked up. They've closed the doors to the unit. But then I started to get preoccupied with these towels on the floor and with magazines. I started to think there's some kind of puzzle for me to figure out involving these towels and these magazines. And so I was walking around the unit. Going to the shower and picking up towels, like going through all the magazines and the drawers of the, the tables and everything. And, I was just gone. Now, there's another significant factor here. Should I even say this? I hate to have to bring this up, but again, this is a story that I have to tell. It should never be told. I'm going to have to tell it anyways. Is that that it was around this time that I went to the hospital that I started to talk about the abuse. I started to realize that about the abuse that I'd suffered. I started talking about it, and my family tries to get my claim that this abuse happened written off as a symptom of my mental health condition. That I think this because of some kind of that I've got some kind of mental illness delusion. That I think that this happened, and to further that cause. They pay off the technicians in the unit that I was staying in to do stuff to confuse me, to make me think that all the stuff that I thought was true, and to kind of they wanted to get me to seem as out there and as ill, and as this kind of say the most extreme things. The more ill I look, the better. Now I can't explain exactly how I figured this out. It has to do with this cognitive empathy that I have, that I mentioned in the other videos. I've got a very acute cognitive empathy, and I am able to deduce stuff from people's behavior. I know that probably sounds crazy. I don't know how that sounds to you, But I inherited this from my dad. My dad had the same cognitive empathy traits. I inherited this, and I can kind of read into people's behavior and figure out what they're up to. And that was one of the things that went on at the hospital. And now some of these things I figure out, I'll give you an explanation probably, because I figure out a lot of stuff, like that. But this is a terrible, cruel behavior. To have somebody been abused and have their beliefs written off as a mental health delusion. And so I'm in this hospital. I signed a voluntary agreement to stay for 21 days. Towards the end of the 21 days, the doctor there tells me that he's going to put in for me to have a 90-day stay, and he's going to try to force it on me. Until we're supposed to go to court, and outside the courtroom, he negotiates with me that I would stay another 60 days, and I said, listen, if you don't agree to the 60-day stay, I'm going to go in here in the court and force you into 90. And but if you do take this 60-day stay and you're doing really good after 30 days, I will let you go home early. I go home after 30 days. And so this intimidated me. I signed this agreement. And when I get back to the ward, and he had told me that I was going to have an intramuscular shot of a medication called Zyprexa, which at that time was a newer medicine that was held as kind of like a miracle drug. When I get back to the ward, I'm getting an intramuscular shot of haloperidol. And haloperidol is a medicine I've been taking orally, and it caused horrible side effects. It caused my joints to lock up, caused my eyes to twitter, caused my tongue to feel like it was lead. I mean, I get this horrible, it's like I got this physical feeling like I've got the flu, except it's about 5 times worse than the flu. And so when they come in there and say, hey, we got an intramuscular shot of haloperidol, I say, listen, this causes all these terrible side effects, and it's been documented because I told the nurse. And they say, well, this is a slow-acting, slow-release shot. You won't feel anything. You're not going to have any side effects. You won't feel anything for another couple of days. Well, not long at all after they inject me, I start to feel like absolute hell. And I ended up having to pace the floors of this hospital 12 hours a day to keep my legs from locking up. That when I would lay down at night in bed, because of this thing where it causes you to clench up, I'd be like in the fetal position, and it's like all my muscles and my joints just wanted to contract. And my stay in this hospital was hell. They ended up not letting me out after 30 days. They made me stay another. So after the first 30 days is over, I'm staying the next 30 days, and it ends up I get out 9 days early. So I was there for a total of 72 days, the 21-day original stay that I was there, and then 41 days past that after this negotiation with the doctor in the hospital and the court. This hospital, they have a court inside the hospital. It's a hospital called Broughton. It's in Morganton, North Carolina. But I finally got out, and man, was I excited to be out, because I couldn't stand this place. It brought me to tears, and so I get to go out and be back with my friends. Now, I just want to make a note here that I'm in absolute terrible suffering as I'm making these videos. And what I do is I make one for a few minutes. It's 5-6 minutes long, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then I get up and pace for a period of time. But I have this very terrible feeling of having a broken brain and having a mental paralysis, and it's just torture. Okay, and what kills me about this is it's not apparent. You probably can't even tell this by watching me on these videos, but I am suffering unbelievably. But I get back from the hospital. From the hospital. I mentioned before, that my friends thought that this was this new me, this guy that went to the hospital. Then they eventually figure out, that I'm back to my old self. They don't get what's happened, but things are going good. And I'll skip the details here, but what happens is there becomes a misunderstanding related to what happened when I first went to the hospital. There was a police officer that took me there. And there was a misunderstanding that happened after I got back to the hospital. where people thought that I had snitched on them while I was in this police car in some kind of quid pro quo exchange related to this marijuana. I had marijuana on my possession. And that actually didn't happen. The officer had taken the marijuana and just said, Clint, we can't let you have this weed, buddy. I guess because I was so mentally ill, they felt bad for me. They didn't charge me, they just took it. But this and a few other sets of misperceptions causes things to go downhill, and it triggers an attempt on my life. They tried to kill me by selling me a marijuana cigarette that had a wire in it with boric acid. And what happens is it's got this wire, and you light the joint, and you're smoking it. The heat of the joint, being lit, vaporizes this gas, and you take it, and it goes in your lungs, and you suffocate and die. They weren't successful. Me and my friend that we were going to smoke this, we found the wire in the joints, and but that was another. This is kind of the beginning of this event, all the stuff that happened with the hospital, and then the hospital, and then what follows. This was like the destruction of my life. Okay, this is the beginning of the end of everything. It was terrible. Now, at this restaurant that I worked at, there were these two girls that I loved to death. I wanted to be their boyfriend, and these other guys at work were also pursuing these same girls, and then also other girls. And all the girls were kind of liking me, and not really being into these other guys. And part of that was because I would talk to these girls. I was perfectly happy to be friends. I would talk to them like they're human beings. I don't play games with them. I don't do anything. I just talk to them. Very genuine, very open. I cared about them. And so this is something I think that these girls have responded to. And these other guys, were trying to be players and whatever. And this was a big source of frustration for them before I went to the hospital, about how all the girls around seemed to like me and seemed to want to talk to me, and they couldn't get anywhere. And so when this new girl comes, I'll call her, and this is after I get out of the hospital, I'll call her Megan. These guys. Now the thing is, this Megan girl, it's not like that I default went after every girl that came in there. Kind of the way that these guys did. But this Megan girl had a boyfriend that she was really, really happy with, and I never thought for 1 second of pursuing this girl. This other guy at work, one guy in particular, I was pursuing her. I'll call him Kevin. And oh God, I'm getting bad off here. I'm going to have to cut this video off. So to pick back up, Kevin was pursuing Megan, and basically just about everybody, there was a scam there that he had this guy. I'll call this guy Danny, who was his friend, and Danny's role was to be Megan's confidant. That he would be, he was real close with Megan. Well, his role as the confidant. Actually, everything that Megan tells him goes straight back to Kevin. Everything he tells Megan is designed to get her to leave her boyfriend and go with Kevin. The way that Danny put it to some of his friends that came in there is, this new girl, her name's Megan. We're trying to get her and her boyfriend broke up so that Kevin can get laid. Now, this girl, she was pitiful. She would come to work crying about her boyfriend getting in arguments with her. And I felt so bad, and I was so this is the most appalling thing I'd ever seen, what they were doing with her. And I wanted to tell her so bad, and I cared about this girl. And, she'd come in there crying, I'd be hugging her, and I just felt so bad. But there was a problem that I couldn't tell, because what's going on with Megan is at times she's very open with me, very friendly, very talkative. She can trust me, stuff like this, that she's talking to me like I'm a real good guy. And then she'll start acting like she doesn't trust me. She doesn't want to disclose any details about anything. She's real reserved about what she says. She's dismissive. Things like this, that's kind of clear to me that Megan is going back and forth in her mind about me, whether she can trust me or not. Now the thing is, is, that at this restaurant, these cooks were they're real in, these this guy I'm calling Kevin, this guy I'm calling Danny. That's what their role was, and they had kind of taken over the restaurant in a way, and they could certainly make my life hell. If and so I never told Megan what was going on because I'm worried she's gonna not trust me and run and tell them, and then it's just gonna make my life harder. And I would do everything that I could to get her. I wanted her to just permanently trust me. And I'd tell her, I said, listen, you can tell me you can tell me all this stuff. I'll never betray your trust. All this stuff that I would tell her, to try to make her understand that I'm a safe person, that she never ever would trust me continually. Now, what's happened, it becomes clear. One day when I'm taking some stuff out of the salad bar, and I hear Megan talking to these guys, and she says, I don't think he's evil. I think he can get a girlfriend. Okay, now at first I don't think any of this. I don't think anything of it. And then one of them says, if he would brush his damn teeth. Okay, now I've always had bad teeth my whole life because I didn't take care of them when I was young. And so this comment she made, in context, this means that this comment she made about, I don't think he's evil and I think he could get a girlfriend, this was about me, okay? That's who they're talking about. They're talking about me, this guy with bad teeth. And so now here's the thing: I've done nothing to make Megan think I'm a bad person at all. This notion that I'm some kind of bad person, this came from them. Okay, and what's happened is they've had a learning curve. They've realized that every time that they go and scheme on one of these girls, I foil their plans because again, the girls like me better, and I'm willing to be their friends, and I don't participate in despicable behavior like this. And so they've anticipated this. They want to stop this from happening. And what they've done is they went and told her a bunch of disparaging stuff about my mental health history and made me out to be some kind of dangerous, bad, a scary, whatever guy. Which this hospital, Broughton, okay, again, this is a hospital, is a place for people who are ill and who need help. However, the locals in the mountains, they didn't know it that way. To them, this is the place where it's like, stay to the right because Hannibal Lecter's on the left. That they got people chained up and the people in this place are cannibals. There's all these horrible perceptions that went around about this hospital. And so, when we're kids and we're in school and we're taking field trips and we drive past it, it's like we're looking out the hospital in awe, thinking about all the deranged, crazy people back there and all of this. It's a real big stigma that have been to this hospital. And this is what makes it easy for them to disparage me like this. And so what's happening with Megan, as she's going back and forth, what she's doing is she's going back and forth between her perceptions of me, how I seem to her as this trustworthy, nice guy that cares about her, versus the perceptions that she's been, what she's been told about everyone else, that I'm some kind of evil, deranged, twisted, whatever person. But this ends up, this thing where girls are told disparaging things about my mental health history. This becomes a behavior pattern that is repeated over my life, and it ends up, absolutely murders me. And that was the first, and I figured out what had happened. And I guess I'm going to have to cut this video off because I got to think of what I want to say next. But that's one example of what I talk about with this cognitive empathy, is that, in reading into people's behavior, because Megan says, I don't think he's evil, I think he's girlfriend. What's going on there is this notion that I'm evil. This is not a product of her mind. She didn't come up with this on her own because I've given her nothing to really represent that. Which actually, let me go back. I'll make a confession here. I've oversimplified this. That what she actually said was that I think she said he's just evil, but he could get a girlfriend or something like that. And I'm very sorry. I simplified this to make it easier for you to understand, but that's actually what she said. And so when she says he's just evil, so you read into that I'm just evil. What that means, the just means that there's some other component to me other than being evil. Okay? And this perception she had of me being evil, was because I still had this quality, where I saw myself as evil, twisted, disturbed, and I would tell these very dark, sinister jokes and stuff like that. That you could make you think that. But when she says just, so there's something else that I am other than just evil, and whatever this is not a product of her mind. Okay, but so this is just, so she has this idea that I'm some kind of dangerous, bad, sinister person. Okay, in other words, she had witnessed this behavior I have, where I say disturbing things and stuff like this. But what she's saying is he's not a dangerous person. He's not this this idea that she has. Okay, but it's not a product of her mind, and it had to get in her mind somehow. Okay, this doesn't just happen for no reason, and it's a very straightforward deduction that they've told her. And when you kind of calculate the way people you calculate people's behavior and how they work, this is a very straightforward thing that you can infer. What's happened is, hey, they don't need to fool their plans with this girl, and so they've preempted me by making her. They want to make sure that she doesn't trust me, that she doesn't get to where she can confide in me, and I can confide stuff in her, and they don't want to go to shit like the rest of these girls that they were scheming on. And so that's what's happened there. And again, I'll get into this more, but this is the beginning of a behavior pattern that destroys my life. Now, this last video that I made has another important detail that kind of defines my life, is that girls tend to like me. I have some natural qualities that I can't fully pin down, that I tend to get a lot of girls that think very, very, very well of me, and a lot of times they're kind of enamored of me and get kind of charmed. And it comes back to me being genuine. I'm eccentric, and so that there's an appeal to eccentricity has an appeal to women, I think, because it's like they're always kind of looking for something more, than this humdrum life that they've led. And so someone who does things entirely differently, there's an appeal to that. And this would end up, this is something that doesn't go over well with other people. Okay, you can see I'm not tremendously attractive, and so other guys, I got these bad teeth, and it's like they don't like this, the way these girls will talk to me, be all giddy with me when they might not be talking to them, and because I'm pale and I got these nasty teeth and all this other stuff, and but getting back to the story. The restaurant ends up closing down around the time I'm age 22. I get a job at a gas station shortly after that. And I work 16-hour shifts Saturday and Sunday. So I work 16 hours Saturday, go home, sleep 5 or 6 hours, come work Sunday, and sleep and work another 16 hours. And there were all kinds of girls that came in there, obviously, and everybody comes in the gas station. And this quality that I have, that girls like me, that they I had a lot of girls that were really, really, I don't know, I mean, this sounds crazy because I'm a guy behind the scenes, behind the counter at a gas station ringing you up, but I became kind of like, a ladies' man. I don't know how to say it, but these girls loved me. They were talking to me, and of course I would be not exactly flirty, but I would be playful with them and be fun and tell them jokes, and poke fun at them in a playful way. I was just generally I had a fun personality, and I also was the same with the guys. I had a fun personality with them too. I'd say all this crazy stuff and pop jokes, and that I became kind of a superstar at the gas station. Now, during these years between ages 20 and 22, and then on up as I'm working at the gas station, I started to really reflect on myself and reflect on my behavior, and to really work on myself. Now, I had an outpatient psychologist that I was assigned at age 19 when I got out of the hospital. So it was the day after I turned. It's like the day or a week after I turned 19. Was when I was let out of the hospital, and then I had an outpatient therapist, counselor, psychologist that really helped me, and I also started buying these recovery books for people who had abused as children and suffered from different issues, kids that grow up with alcoholics and stuff like this. And part of it was this thing that I said many, many videos ago, where I talk about there's something about me and other people, and I didn't understand how to be. When I was younger, I had problems with honesty. On up into, well, the problems with honesty almost completely went away due to this therapy from the Ray Powers. When I started seeing at 13, also from my grandfather. But every now and then it was like, and when I was a kid, I was kind of like a pathological liar. And there were residues of this, that here and there I would be telling lies, at age 17, 18, 20, ages around there. And again, it's at age 20 that I started to reflect on myself and really, start to work on myself. And then the working on myself intensifies around age 22. But I had some realizations. One was, I'd never quite understood that people are selfish. Okay, that growing up in my home, it was like I was always the center of attention. Okay, because I'm my mother's world. She showers me with gifts. I get whatever I want, and so it's like whatever I want, she gives me. And then with my stepfather, it's like I'm always the problem. So it's always me, 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 me. That everything in the household's going bad, and he blames it on me, and I'm always doing something. Okay, and it's like I'm the center of the universe in a good way or a bad way. And I had one of the behavior patterns I had was I would be imposing on people. I'd be asking them to take me rides to places when it's not their role to give me a ride to this place. And it was kind of an inconvenience to them, but they would do it because they felt bad and didn't want to be impolite. And things like this. And I had this insight from reading a book called The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. And he talks about how that genes are selfish. That we're working, the human beings, we're replicating DNA. That's what we are. And that their individual genes tend to be selfish, and this tends to create selfish creatures who also, according in this book, it talks about that we have altruism, and our altruism in a lot of cases is just a manifestation of the selfishness of our genes. Now you can skip that. That's a detail about the book that you don't need to know. The takeaway here, as it relates to my story, is that I had an insight that people were selfish, and I started to incorporate that into my behavior. And I thought about how that you've got to pay attention to the other person, and you've got to not take more than you give in life. And I thought about how that I've had this quality, like I said in one of the other videos, that when I was younger, and of course this was through my life, I could be kind of a charming, that I had this way of being around people. That was kind of my natural way of being around people, and I could be kind of ingratiating and really leave a positive impression on people. And this can cause people to have this reaction to me, where they just fork over whatever I need, whatever I want. I get it. That I seemed to have a way that was kind of designed to give me an opportunity to take more than I give. Okay, in all my interactions with people. And this thought process went on for a long time. And another huge influence on me, this is probably the biggest influence in terms of my development as a moral human being, because this is a large part of what I'm talking about here, is I was reflecting on what it means to be a human being and how to do right as a human being. This book called The Moral Animal, and it's about evolutionary psychology. And this book talks about how that we have biases, the things we do for others tend to weigh on our minds more heavily than the things that they do for us. So for me to loan somebody $100, this feels like a more significant expenditure to me, a more significant commitment to somebody than it does when somebody lends me $100. If somebody lends me $100, I don't attach the same way as if I lived. I discount what people do for me on an emotional level. It doesn't seem like they're making such a sacrifice as it is when I'm doing something. It talks about all these different things about how that our brains, and of course there's other psychology books that I read that talk about the same thing, about how our brains are kind of designed to skew reality in a way that favors us. And so this gave me this perception, this notion of life, that we have to fight if we're going to be moral and live a moral, be a morally human being, to live a moral life, to do what's right, that we have to fight who we naturally are. In other words, if my base instinct, my base impulse is to skew the facts of reality in a way that favors me, okay, I've got to be conscious of that, and I got to fight it, and I got to correct for myself and think, okay, hey, this person's only $100. That's a lot of money to this person, okay, and this is a big thing that they're doing, and I need to really make sure that I take care of them, and just pretty much, in every interaction you have, you've got to really be conscious of the way that you work and how you can bend things to favor yourself, and that your base instincts, your base impulses are not those are not things that you should always be following. And another thing that I do during this time that I'm working on myself, reading these books, is I would read books like I read books about people that, like my dad, that have his condition. Like there's this book called Without Conscience by a guy named Robert Hare. And if I would read a book and I would hear some behavior that's manipulative or dishonest or wrong, and I saw portions of that behavior or that behavior in myself, I would start to work on not having that behavior. The conclusion that I came to after all of my studying and all of my efforts and to try to be a moral person, live a morally appropriate life, to be a human being, was that the act of being a moral person, the activity that you undertake is you exert your will against your own nature, and that you try to be something that you can never be on an enduring basis. The reason that you strive to be something you can never be on an enduring basis, you can't be on an enduring basis because it requires willpower to do it. So in each moment that you have, that you got to make a decision to do what's right or do what is wrong, that if your base impulses, your nature is geared towards doing what is wrong, you have to exert your will against that nature to do the right thing. And what happens is eventually you run out of willpower, and that's why you cannot be on an enduring basis. It's an ongoing, non-stop process of exerting your will against yourself, against your own nature. And my grandfather on my dad's side, who had such a preoccupation with teaching me about being honest and teaching me about work and having a work ethic and the value of hard days at work, he had a preoccupation with teaching me this. Because that was the main problems my dad had. My dad had a big problem with honesty, and my dad didn't want to work for a living. He wanted to be a con man and stuff like this. And looking back, and other people in my family have confirmed this, that my grandfather was redoing, in teaching me all this stuff, he was having a do-over with his raising of my father. He had saw how my dad had turned out, and he had tried to get me to turn out different, and he succeeded. Now, what I've realized over time, this is a recent realization, is this notion that I have that the act of being a moral human being is to exert your will against your own nature. This is applicable to everyone, but it seems like it's specially designed for someone who has my dad's blood in their veins, like me, that again, my natural way of being, it's like I'm kind of designed in a way that I can take more than I give and kind of get away with it. And this is unfair, and it's wrong to do that. And at times it seems to me like I have a naturally occurring over awareness of what's in it for me. When I go into a situation, I've got to tone back all of this. It's like this natural way that I have of being, where people just really fall in love with me and they want to do good for me and want to help me. That's fine. I can have that natural way of being, but I've got to make sure I do equally as much for them. I've got to make sure I put the brakes on them when they start going too far and not accepting it. Stuff like that. And I think that I've turned out I'm I'm an extraordinarily good person. In my books and the books of the people that know me, I think that I'm very, very extremely kind-hearted. I try to do right at all times. And this is quite an accomplishment when you take the fact of all the behavior problems I had as a teen that I kind of started out in life as being kind of like my dad had behavior problems as well. And I think that this unbelievably talented counselor that I had starting at age 13, Ray Powers, who specialized in kids that had the kind of behavior problems that I have. The fact that my grandfather, this process, my grandfather trying to raise my father and seeing how my dad works, but my grandfather's like saturated with how my dad works. This will produce insights that years and years of schooling will not produce as to how you handle people who have this kind of basic nature. That my grandfather was another big, huge component. And of course, the biggest component, or the component that makes it all work, is I genuinely want to do right. I want to do what's right. That's why, when I have this behavioral therapist at age 13, Ray Powers, I'm honest with him. I do the right thing with him. That I'm given structure and I'm given, a system that I can work with. I have a desire to do what's right. But going back in my grandfather, all of the insights that he has from trying to raise my dad and failing and seeing how my dad works, Ray Powers, and then the psychologist I had at starting at age 19, and then all of these books and all of my strivings. That's what's resulted in me. I grew up to be a much different person than my dad was. My dad was someone who took full advantage of his ability to take more than he can give in situations with people when he was involved in all kinds of crime in his life and stuff like this. And the closest thing to me, if you want a book, anybody cares to know about me, there's a book called Eccentrics by David Weeks, which describes me perfectly. So I'll continue on with the next video. And this entire time, since I worked at the restaurant, I worked in the gas station. I eventually had a job at a resort, and at one point I was working at 2 gas stations and a real estate office. Throughout my 20s, I worked myself to death. I worked so incredibly hard. When I was 26, I had jobs making anywhere from $6.25 to $7.25 an hour. And I made over $26,000. Okay, you do the math. It's how much you had to work to make $26,000, making between $6.25 and $7.25 an hour, and you will see there's a massive amount of work. Okay, and so I'm working like this at my jobs, and then 60, 70, 80, 90 plus hour weeks. I constantly at all these different jobs. On my off time, I'm reading and studying and trying to better myself, and had all kinds of ideas as to what I wanted to do. One was I was going to be a professional pool player, so I had a garage built and put a pool table in it. And then I decided I wanted to get into real estate, and I turned out to be not at all prepared to sell on real estate when I did that. And it was around this time, close to when I started selling real estate, that I'd realized that I was already on this path where I'm reading these books and learning about all these different types of how to heal from these types of abuse that I've had. And all these girls at the gas station, they liked me, and I wanted to talk back to a lot of them and kind of, not talk back, but, to try to pursue them. But it's like I had some kind of block, and I knew this I had to do something about child abuse that I suffered. And so I ended up getting a book for men who are survivors of sexual abuse called Victims No Longer by a guy named Michael Lew. Now, this book warns you in the beginning not to go through it fast, to take it a little bit at a time. And I completely ignore this warning. And what happens is this book, there are all these experiences, and these feelings, these thoughts, and all these experiences that I've had in my life that were related to my abuse. I never ever been able to put them into words. I just kind of had them. And this book put it in plain English words, what I was going through, what I was experiencing. And it's like that there's this abuse that was inflicted on me. created a bottomless box of pain. Okay, there's just an endless supply of pain in this box, and what's needed to unlock this box of pain is for somebody to put into words what you've been experiencing your whole life, in terms of this thing where I felt like I was an imposter, that anytime anybody thought something good about me, that I must have fooled them, that I was so bright my whole life, but people always tell me how bright and smart and a genius and stuff like this, and I would be in the back of my mind, I'd be waiting for the day they find me out that I'm really not smart. Because I'm all bad. I'm all bad in all ways. The only way that somebody can think something good about me is if I fooled them. And I realized no, I'd already stopped this thing where I talk like I'm evil and stuff like this. I'd stopped this because I've been working on myself, and I realized this is not the way to be around people. This book mentions how you'll see yourself as evil and twisted and sick and all that stuff, and I had that insight there. And I mean, this was just so unbelievably painful. I mean, I would have to pull over. I'd be driving down the road, and I would start thinking about stuff, and I would have to pull over. I remember one time I pulled over in an empty parking lot and just wailed and screamed. And I'd be in my apartment. I'd be wailing and screaming in tears. I mean, it was just horrible. And of course, I had other things to work on as well, because I'm autistic and I have trouble with social interactions. And so I just had a massive, massive learning curve ahead of me. And I talk about all these things I want to do. What I eventually do is I go back to college. And it's a little before I go back to college, this is age 26, that I start hanging out in the bars. And I would see these girls that were from my store, or maybe it's the first time that I met them. And I really, really wanted a girlfriend really bad. I was looking for one that was perfect for me, like one to marry. Basically, I was one that I was being very, very picky, because I wanted the one that I got. This is gonna be somebody that I could stick with for life. And so I would be talking to these girls, and it was hit or miss, but a lot of them would really like me. And then what happens is the exact same thing happens every single time. Is I see them out in the bar, or at the restaurant, wherever I see them at. I talk to them, they're real giddy, they like me, they want to talk to me again. Then the next time I see them out somewhere else, they shun me, they treat me like I'm a disease, like I have a disease. They feel like they act like they're embarrassed to have liked me in the first place. They don't want people to know, and some of them act scared of me. What became clear is that the second I leave whatever venue I'm at, this same tactic is being used that was used before, where they tell a bunch of stuff about my mental health history. And this behavior pattern kept me from being able to get a girlfriend the entire time that I lived in the mountains. And let me tell you, man, it is pain. Okay, and as this stuff got around, it's like more and more people are treating me like a stigmatized person. I have all these girls that love me, then they hate me. I mean, I wanted to die every night for years. I went to bed thinking, how can I end my life? How can I end my life? How can I get a gun? If I got a gun, how would I shoot myself to make sure that I don't survive? Because I couldn't stand to be a vegetable. I'm so miserable already. I mean, it was just pure hell, and it traumatized the ever-living hell out of me. And that's why I was excited. I had to decide that I needed to start a new life somewhere else once I got out of college. And that's why I was excited to start a new life once I graduated college in 2011. And I moved from the mountains of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, there's one relevant detail about all this where I'm disparaged and stigmatized about my mental health history. Is that after I got out of the hospital, there was a period of a year or two where I self-diagnosed myself with everything under the sun. I had kind of a mental health hypochondria. And I became very, very, very convinced that I was a psychopath, like my dad had been. And I told people about this constantly. People, and of course my social circle is limited because I don't have a driver's license. I didn't have a driver's license until I was 24 years old. This has to do with my autism, but I found driving to be something extremely hard to do. And it took me until I was 24 to get to where I was able to drive. And so my social circle is confined at the time that I'm saying this to the people at the restaurant I work at and the people at the pool hall that I go to. And so I didn't. It wasn't able to go that far for me. And all the people that I told this told me different. Like, no, that's not how you are. You're not a person like that at all. You need to stop saying this. But I would notice that when girls were around, they would encourage me to say this stuff. And so this was their tactic. And I do accept, that I have responsibility by saying some of this stuff myself. But my responsibility is giving these people ammo to say stuff against me that they know isn't true. It was just a cruel social tactic that was used. And it was overall my life in the mountains was a mess. That's what it amounts to. That I had people that I pissed off, that had an irrational passion, had it out for me. I had people trying to kill me, I lived in this terrible, terrible, terrible pain. And so I am very, very happy to move to Charlotte, North Carolina with my college degree, finance degree, freshly in hand. Work all these jobs to get out. I graduate with highest honors, summa cum laude, or however you say that, summa cum laude, however you say that. I don't know how you say that. When you get the highest Latin honors. I was the number one or number two student in my department in terms of GPA. I believe was in the top 3% of the college overall in terms of GPA, which was good because I had one of the harder majors. I went to Appalachian State, and their business school is one of their tougher schools. And so to have a high GPA at that school, that section of the college was something else. And so I was really, really excited. Moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2011. And for about 6 months, I was without a job. And then I got a job working at Bank of America doing residential mortgage loan modifications. Now, I wasn't an employee of Bank of America. I was an employee of a contract temp agency that they were my payer. They were the people that I was on their payroll. But I worked inside a Bank of America building, at a Bank of America desk, doing Bank of America work alongside Bank of America employees. And I was a superstar at this job. Okay, I was extremely good at it. I moved more files than anybody by the time it was said and done. The goal of the whole process is to get a complete file and get it sent to underwriting. That was my role. We were called process support, and our goal was to assemble a complete document package and get it through underwriting successfully. And I was able to do that as good or better, pretty much better than anyone by the time it was all said and done. I would say the last 12 months I was there, I was the number one producer. I had a line of people at my desk all the time wanted to ask me questions about how does this, how do I interpret this guideline, what does this file need, stuff like that. I was the buzz about Bank of America. We had these people at a place called Urban Lending Solutions that worked with us, that had underwriters that worked for them. And I was said to be a rock star around their office, and they're talking about me all the time because I'm sending them all these files, and they're such high quality, and I know the guidelines so well. I was just famous, and man, was this a nice break from a life where I was treated as a stigmatized person who was not worth anything, who was to be subtly disrespected, disregarded, and who was ashamed to be seen with if you're a pretty girl. And that job lasted. That job lasted about 18 months. I survived every layoff except the last one. And that last layoff at the end of my 18-month contract, and it was around July of 2013. I'm back in the job market again. And so I end up getting a job working for another temp agency. And this time I'll be working at Wells Fargo in Wells Fargo's commercial lending space. Now, I learned this job very, very fast. I'm in training in November 13. December of 13, I hit the production floor. And I'm very, very rapidly, I have very good metrics for a beginner. And I have 100% quality for one of my first months there is December, January it was. I had 100% quality. And then February, I think I had 100% quality, that I was really, really picking up on this job fast. And I was assigned my own offices. First off, I was helping this guy named Paul with his offices. Then I was assigned my offices, which we do work for internal Wells Fargo. My department, the segment of Wells Fargo that I work for, our immediate customer is an internal Wells Fargo commercial lending office. We all have commercial lending offices assigned to us that we do work for. We prepare the financial information that they underwrite and monitor loans based on. And we also test their customers for compliance with loan covenants. There's a thing in commercial lending sometimes called technical default, that you have these loan covenants that even though you're making the payments on the loan, when you default on your covenants, you're in default, regardless. But I'm assigned my own offices. I get some publicly traded company offices. We call the publicly traded companies, we call those corporate. A lot of times we call those corporate loans, and then the commercial would be the companies that are incorporated but they're not publicly traded. And I got so after it was in January that I got my corporate offices, and then I was assigned some much busier commercial offices in February because I was just taking way too much work. I was doing way too much work. My offices couldn't keep up with me. And then in March of 2014, there are a few new developments. One is that there's an opening for somebody to get for 2 analysts to be hired to be hired by Wells Fargo, and they'll be Wells Fargo employees and not contractors, which means you get a pay bump, you get Wells Fargo benefits. This is a great thing, and my manager told me, like, you're a shoe-in, you're going to get one of these roles. And then the other thing was they needed a new analyst to take over the food and agribusiness offices. And the food and agribusiness offices were notorious for having the hardest work in the whole commercial lending space there in our whole credit analysis. I worked in commercial lending space in a department called credit analysis. And for credit analysis, the food and agribusiness offices had the hardest work in the bank, and they were also extremely busy. They had all these customers, and they wanted me to take them over. So I take them over. I've got the hardest work in all the bank. My immediate customers are Wells Fargo commercial lending offices that do food and agribusiness lending, and then I work companies that they have, and so I had the total number of customers I had. So my immediate customers are Wells Fargo commercial lending offices, and they might have a loan with ABC Incorporated, Foodstuffs Incorporated, and that would be a customer too. And at that level, those customers, the third party customers, I was assigned, by the time it was said and done, over 330 customers. I had more work than any human being could do. In a 40-hour week by far, and when I first took over my offices, I was working overtime constantly. I worked holidays. It was a period of about 15 months, if I recall right, that I took one Saturday off, and so I'm very quickly a superstar employee again at Wells Fargo, and that I'm very respected. People are deferential towards me, and I'm treated really, really, really well. Now things change down the road. After we get a new change in our senior management, we get a new senior manager who didn't have any relevant experience in commercial lending or anything like that. He never worked in a credit department. As far as I know, he'd never taken an accounting class. That he had gotten the job due to being a friend of another bigwig that used to be in our department. Was the gist that I got of it. But he and I have tension. And as we're having this tension, I make a new friend at work. It's this girl named Jenny. And Jenny was an expert on document tracking. They moved the responsibility of document tracking to my segment, credit analysis. And Jenny had moved to credit analysis from the document team, and so she knows all about this document tracking. And I know all about credit analysis, and so I'm going to teach her credit analysis if she'll teach me this document training, and we become really, really good friends. Now Jenny sits right next to Bill, she sits right there over there where Bill sits. It's a good 30, 40 feet away from my desk. And Bill would overhear me training her and talking to her. And as I become a frustration for Bill increasingly, and I'm a frustration because I'm telling my office about how this place is being mismanaged and about how the mismanagement is causing this horrible, terrible, traumatic stress on me. And also I talk some stuff about how our QA team was not up to par on my work and stuff like this. That I say stuff that reflects badly on the department, and it's bad news for Bill, but he doesn't know how to deal with it by talking to me directly. So he gets Jenny, that they talk about this, and he uses her to get information about me. This thing where Jenny wants to get information about, or where Bill uses Jenny to get information about me to handle the situation with me, it gets bumped up a notch after I tell a coworker of mine named Toonie. I tell her about back home that there are a lot of people that hate me, talking about these people that stigmatize me and stuff, and say this stuff about me, and they're probably on my Facebook. Now, Toonie looks confused. She didn't even know that I had a Facebook. I kept my Facebook on ultra privacy. Toonie didn't even know that I had one. She says, I can look you up, can't I? Shortly after that I tell Toonie this, Bill apparently puts Jenny up to going and conning me out of a link to my Facebook profile and quote unquote inquiring about my past. And so Jenny goes and talks to this girl named Abby on my Facebook. And she has told all this disparaging garbage goes about me, about my mental health history. They've talked about stuff about my sex life, everything under the sun. They tell this girl, okay? And instantly my workplace becomes hell, okay? And this reaction that people have to me, where I'm stigmatized, where they disrespect me, where I'm subtly disregarded, okay, this made me want to die in the mountains, and I can see it from a mile away. And instantly after I talk to Jenny, and Jenny gets me to cons me out of this link to my Facebook profile, I go to work, and my workplace has mutated into this hell that I had left. Okay, and this traumatizes the ever-living hell out of me. I don't know that it's Jenny that's done this. I connect this thing where Toonie's asking me about this. I thought that Toonie had found my Facebook. I didn't realize at first that Jenny was calling me out of this link so that Jenny could talk to her. I thought that Toonie had found me somehow, that I'd left the setting off where I can search my number, and that Toonie had talked to her, and Toonie was one of the first ones I noticed at work doing what I call go cold on me. And go cold, that's when they go from liking you and respecting you and treating you as a good person to disregarding you, stigmatizing you, treating you like you have a disease. This whole behavior pattern that I thought that Toonie had done this, and so I call Jenny, and I'm screaming and wailing in tears. Jenny doesn't know what to do. She's very, very concerned. And then I asked Jenny at the end of the call, will you please ask Toonie who she talked to and what they said, and let's have a conversation. Okay, now Jenny refuses to do this, very bizarrely to me. Now, I'm so traumatized that I don't argue with Jenny, but from this moment on, where Jenny refuses to talk to Toonie about this, I know that Jenny knows more about it than Jenny's admitting. And so my workplace becomes hell following this. And me and Jenny fight about it for a year and a half. Okay, this happens in around the first week of December 2017. And we fight about this. And it becomes in April 2019. This escalates. Now, at this time, I don't even know that Wells Fargo is behind what happened. I just think that Jenny knows. Actually, so by now, by April of 19, Jenny has made a Freudian slip that gave away that she was the one, or among she either called Abby, and she's the one that talked to Abby, or she's one of the ones. So it was either her and Toonie, or it was her by herself. But Jenny had a Freudian slip where she let it out that she's the one that talked to Abby. We got in a conversation. We got in an argument. She says, "Okay, well, I talked to her, and she said you'd been in a mental institution. Is that what you want to hear?" And when she wasn't admitting it, she was, this is her way of denying it. But when she says that, when Jenny says that I talked to her, I never, ever mentioned one time anything about Jenny talking to anyone. I just said that she knew more about it. Which, by the way, in the description of this video and down below, there's a link to my complaint, and that complaint, the complaint I submitted to the federal authorities about this. And in the back of that link, there's the back of that complaint. There's links to evidence on my CloudFront distribution. You see those links to Amazon CloudFront for the evidence that you can go and check out all my evidence for everything that I make a claim for. I've got an airtight case for pretty much all of it. What happens is me and Jenny get arguing about this. And Jenny keeps wanting to talk to my doctors in private. And my doctor, she wants to talk to her in private time with Jenny and my doctor. Then she wants me to talk to these crisis counselors. And as we're having this argument, because Jenny this whole time keeps telling me that I have a quote-unquote paranoid delusion. That's how she describes my belief that somebody from work, that somebody had went and talked to somebody and heard some stuff about me. They heard all these rumors go around about me. She said that I have a paranoid delusion, And at this point, I'm sick and tired of Jenny lying to me. She's been lying to me about this for a year and a half. And I tell her, here's what you do, Jenny. I go to the magistrate or go to a judge and say that I have a paranoid delusion, and be prepared for me to contend with all parties that you're filing it, and you're going to file a petition to have me involuntarily hospitalized. If I have a paranoid delusion, they should be able to involuntarily hospitalize me. And but I said, be prepared for me to contend with all parties that you are filing in bad faith. And basically, what I'm telling Jenny is, one of us is going to walk out of that room in handcuffs. So either you're right, and I've got a paranoid delusion, and I walk out of there in handcuffs, or that I'm put in handcuffs and taken to the hospital, or you're lying and you get put in handcuffs. And kind of my thing was the theme of what I was trying to tell Jenny was, I'm tired of you lying. So if you want to lie about this anymore, go lie about it. Somebody can throw you in handcuffs for lying and put you in jail for lying. So we have this argument, and she has these crisis counselors. She eventually talks to me, and letting these crisis counselors come and talk to me. And these crisis counselors come in here, one named Allie Rowe and Cheryl Horton. And Cheryl Horton is obsessed with, do you have a mental illness, and what's your diagnosis? That's all she keeps asking me when she's in here. She wants to know, do I have a mental illness? What's my diagnosis? Allie Rowe asks me questions and gets my narrative about what's been going on. I'm talking about this fight that I've been having with Jenny and all of this stuff. And at the conclusion of this, these crisis counselors tell me that I just need to eat a cheeseburger or play on my computer, do whatever relaxes me, that I'm perfectly fine, and I've just had a bad day. Okay, now what they do then is they go and prepare in their internal notes a fraudulent healthcare record that you can find in the evidence link. If you go to the evidence link in my complaint below, go to the evidence links in that complaint, and you'll see this mobile crisis, their notes, where they claim that I'm paranoid and delusional and disorganized. I mean, a whole slew of, they just paint me in the worst light possible. That I'm paranoid, I'm overweight, I've got bad hygiene, my apartment's malodorous, I'm all of this. It's a hell of a lot more than I need to eat a cheeseburger, and I need, or I need to work on my computer. Okay, and this is on April 17th. And on April 21st, me and Jenny have been arguing about this, and it's about 11:03 at night. I have a knock on my door. Okay, it's an officer from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and he comes in and tells me, he enters my residence against my wishes. I tell him I don't want to talk. He says, we're going to have to talk. Okay, so we're going to have to let me in. Okay, so I let him in here. And he tells me, and then after him, two more officers proceed to come to the door. And he tells me that somebody's called about me, and because of the nature of what's happened, they're going to have to take me to quote-unquote be looked at. Okay, so he makes it clear that he's processing an involuntary commitment stay. And so he handcuffs me and puts me in the back of his patrol car against my will. I don't want to do this. And as we're riding to the hospital, which we drive at a very, very high speed, we drive real fast to this hospital. I'm asking him questions about this petition. He makes it very clear that he does not have the petition in his possession. That I'm asking it. So the petition's been signed. And he says, well, whoever fills it out will sign it. And different questions like that that I'm asking him. That he makes it clear that he doesn't have the petition in hand. And when we get to the door at the hospital, well, so first off, I'm in the hospital, and it's several minutes later that Christopher Davanzo comes back. The officer's name, Christopher Davanzo, comes back with a petition, hands it to the guy at the door. At the door to Atrium Health, Behavioral Health, at their inpatient unit. He hands the guy the petition, and there's an exchange between the guy at the door and the officer, where the officer says, "I'll just say we'll just make them the same. That way we can say we put the wrong time." Now Jenny in her involuntary commitment petition had described me as paranoid, delusional, all these unkempt apartments, all these characterizations that she made that I think my friends are out to get me. She makes it out that I've got this paranoid delusion that she said I've had the whole time on this petition. Now this doctor at Atrium, who I believe goes by Morsi, I'm calling bullshit on this petition. I'm trying to explain to her that this whole thing is a load of garbage, and that she could look at my text with Jenny. That Jenny had claimed that I had detailed plans for suicide. I didn't have any of that. I'd made a heated statement about me being a vegetable, if they come and find me or something like this. not enough under the law to make a heated statement to have you involuntarily hospitalized, and whether or not this the whole thing was fraudulent. Okay, this whole civil commitment petition was fraud from point A to point Z. But Morsi won't listen to me, and she admits me into their observation unit. Now, what I do is I decide that I'm going to have to go along with what Morsi says. That Morsi thinks that I've got some kind of brain chemistry issue, but I don't want to lie completely, so I split the difference. I say, okay, I tell the people I've got a brain chemistry issue, but I also have reasons to believe I have rational reasons to believe that these people did this invasion of my privacy. And what happens is over a period of 2 days, multiple doctors and physicians assistants talk to me. They call Jenny, they call my mother, and they determine, these doctors determine that there's nothing at all wrong with me. Okay, that even though I'm saying I think I have brain chemistry issues, they must have realized I'm just saying that because that's what they say. They decide that there's nothing wrong with me, and they tell me that it's a good thing that I came because I've been examined and they found nothing. Basically saying, hey, you say this girl's invaded your privacy. She's claimed that you have a paranoid delusion. We've examined you. You do not, so you can go ahead and pursue whatever it is you want to pursue with this person. Now, in regards to this exchange at the door with the officer, and what you can see, this commitment petition is in the evidence links to the complaint. So go to the complaint, go down below, go click on the complaint, save a copy of my complaint, go to those evidence links, and you'll see we've got one for the civil commitment petition, involuntary petition, and you can look at it. But both times on this petition were put at 11:43 p.m. So there's 2 times on this petition. There's the time taken into custody, the time I arrived at the examination unit. Okay, so I'm taken into custody at my apartment. I'm driven 17.2 miles to the inpatient unit. Now, how long does it take to do this drive? Well, it takes a while, but both times I was taken into custody at 11:43 p.m. I was delivered to the examination unit at 11:43 p.m. So I've traveled 17.2 miles instantaneously. And so that's what, when he says we're making them the same, he's talking about they're going to put the times the same. Now, why would he make the times the same so they could say they put the wrong time? Because the magistrate has an audit file of when that petition was handed off, and for this officer to do everything that he did to me, to come into my residence against my wishes, to handcuff me against my wishes, and to transport me against my wishes, he has to have that civil commitment petition in his possession when he's doing that. And so he knows that if, say it was 11:30 or 11:35, that he got this civil commitment petition. If he puts 11:30, 11:35, then on the audit file it's going to be very, very clear that he didn't have time to go to go and pick me up at my apartment and take me to and end up at Atrium, at the behavioral health unit, inpatient unit, at 11:40 or whatever it was. We got there. In reality, we got there sometime around 11:40. I would say is what it was, 11:38, 11:40. And so, putting the wrong time on this petition incriminates him. I'm sorry, putting the right time incriminates him, because if he puts that he took me into custody at 11:03 p.m., which is roughly the time he took me into custody, it's going to show on this audit file that the petition was handed off after he'd already transported me. And again, like I said before, the timeline's not going to make sense. He can't claim to have picked me up. And, say he gets his petition at 11:30, 11:35, he can't claim to come and went to my apartment, pick me up, and take me to the hospital about 11:43. So having those two times the same provides plausible deniability. Now, this is a very, very significant thing here, because I'm having this petition, having the petition in his possession is what gives the officer the legal right to coerce me, to put me in handcuffs against my will, to transport me against my will, and all this stuff. And under North Carolina law, if you handcuff somebody and transport them 17.2 miles, having no intent, having no legal right to do so, and you do this to facilitate the commission of a felony, that is kidnapping. Okay, so what happened here was not a civil commitment process. I was kidnapped. Okay, this officer, having no legal right, entered my residence. He confined me. That's an element of the crime of kidnapping. He put me in his patrol car, confined me again. Another element of kidnapping. He transported me, and this civil commitment petition was pure fraud. He knew it was fraud, and he also participated in fraud himself when he fraudulently enters the date and time on this petition as 1143 for both date and times. And so given that he confined me, transported me in the commission of a known felony, what happened here was a kidnapping. Okay, and these crisis counselors, they did not do this for free. Okay, the scam that they ran, they were paid to do this. You'll see in the evidence links, go to the complaint, go to the evidence links, and go to the mobile crisis scam and the mobile crisis analysis. You will see that this mobile crisis counselor, Allie Rowe, 3 months after she comes to visit me, she pays off a mortgage with a balance of roughly $186,000. Okay. And so what's happened is Wells Fargo is behind this whole thing. They've paid off this girl, Allie Rowe. They've paid her mortgage off for her to come and do this blatant bullshit healthcare record, which can be used to file this false pretense commitment petition. It can also be subpoenaed later in court for Wells Fargo. And they've almost certainly paid off the guy at the door and probably paid off the officer that transported me. And so this lays clear that Wells Fargo's intent this entire time, Wells Fargo was behind this, which I'll explain in the next videos, how I know that Wells Fargo was behind the invasion of privacy, and also I'll give you more details of how I know that they're involved in this. But Wells Fargo has intended to make my belief that a privacy violation occurred out to be a symptom of my mental health condition. That I was put in this hospital at 18. I got bipolar disorder type 1, so I'm having a bipolar disorder type 1 delusion that Wells Fargo invaded my privacy. That's the point of these fraudulent notes, this fraudulent civil commitment petition. And now the thing is my hospital calls bullshit on this petition, which is a big problem for Wells Fargo, and I'll get into in the next video. Now it's after this hospital stay that I start having symptoms of traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress disorder. In April of 19. So they sent me home from the hospital on April 24th. I was checked in around 3:30 on April 22nd. And they decided there's nothing wrong with me and let me out. They sent me home on April 24th. Now, to give a background, me and Jenny have been fighting. I've been begging and pleading in total humiliation for my coworkers to tell me what happened. I've been reaching out to people that I knew from work that I did everything for. Okay, and they blocked me on their phone. I've been begging Jenny, and she keeps lying to me and gaslighting me. And it's like there's nothing of me left. And all of a sudden, what I know, I'm being taken out of my apartment in handcuffs. Okay, this is very, very, very traumatic to me. And then it becomes more traumatic as I reach out to my last manager at Wells Fargo, named Courtney. I ask her for help with this situation. Now, Courtney doesn't provide a lot of help. She lies to me mostly. At one point, she does admit that Jenny did this, and she talks about Jenny inquiring about my past. Now, I'd never said anything about Jenny inquiring about my past. I just talked about Jenny talking. I asked people to talk to people that I knew from back in the mountains that I told her bad things about me. And so this is what makes it clear. But this is what they've done. They've inquired about my past. Okay, that's that the notion that Jenny inquired about my past is a product of Courtney's mind. It's entirely her idea, not mine. It doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from her personal knowledge that she knows this is what happened, and she knows this as a Wells Fargo manager. And in this conversation that ensues with me and Courtney, it becomes clear to me that Wells Fargo was behind this entire privacy violation that happened in December of 17. That her senior manager, Bill, most likely is the one, and possibly other managers, had put Jenny up to quote-unquote looking into my past, inquiring about my past, learning about my past. Okay? And my post-traumatic stress symptoms go off the charts in May as I'm talking to Courtney, because I realize the unbelievable cruelty of what's been done to me. Okay, that I wanted a life free from this hell that I left in the mountains and all the stigmatization and all this pain. And they bring the whole thing right here after I killed myself for this bank. After all I've done for this bank, they bring this whole hell right back here after I tried to escape it. Okay, and they destroy my life. And they treat me so cruelly. And when I asked to have a conversation to be told the truth, it's such a little petty demand. I'm not asking for anything. I offered consequence-free, just have a conversation with me, Jenny. This is what they do. They have me kidnapped for asking to have a conversation. It's also during this call with these text history with Courtney, which is in the evidence, and then go to the complaint, go to the evidence links. You can get the Courtney chat is in the I believe it's the privacy violation zip file. But I started to tell Courtney about how this petition that Jenny filed had been called bullshit. And this provokes Wells Fargo's neck. And by the way, as I'm talking to her in May, I'm telling Courtney that I'm crying 3 times a day. I mean, I'm breaking down and melting down. I can't work hardly at all. I basically can do no work. And I was breaking down into terrible pain and tears, and I'm having hostility. Okay, and again, I'm crying 3 times a day. Does the fact that I'm crying 3 times a day get Wells Fargo to stop committing crimes against me? Hell no. Okay, so the next thing I know is in June of 19, Jenny calls me, or Jenny texts me, my friend Jenny texts me and tells me that a lady named Shirley has called her from Atrium Health on her work number and said for me to get in touch with, that she's trying to get in touch with me, and they claim that I've left Jenny's work number as an alternate contact number on my account. Now, there are a few problems here. One is that I've already deauthorized Jenny. So when I'm in the hospital, they force me to give Jenny's number and my mother's number so that they could talk to Jenny and my mother. Okay, I have no choice. And then when I'm in the hospital, I tell them to deauthorize it. I want it deleted. They refuse to delete it. Okay, this girl that I asked to delete this number does not even apparently know that I have the right to have this number deauthorized and deleted. Okay. So they refuse to, and so then the next time I get let out on the 24th, I got an appointment on the 25th. I tell the nurse about this, and I sit there and watch the nurse deauthorize Jenny's number. Okay, Jenny is running scams against me, and I don't need to be. And of course, I already called my hospital before this scam on April 21st when I'm taken out of here in handcuffs. I called my hospital and told them on the 14th and the 16th. Both days I told one or more times to one or more people that Jenny was up to no good. Okay, so telling them that she's up to no good on April 14th and April 16th doesn't cause them to bat an eye at this petition that she fills out that's delivered by a police officer who claims to have teleported me from my residence to this inpatient unit. And so then, so I'm forced to give this girl's name and number that's trying to scam me and compromise my health information. I've already told them this. I'm forced to give this number. I can't get it off. I deauthorized again, and now they're calling Jenny not on Jenny's personal number that I know, but on Jenny's work number, which I don't even know at the time that they're doing this. Okay, and so I know this is another scam, and it's like I need my hospital. I need them to help me with this thing that's going on with Wells Fargo. If they won't do that, I just need them to secure my information and to stop this shit. And here it is, Jenny's running a scam again, and here this finance lady's got a number. This lady at Atrium Health has got a number that I don't even have myself. So what is this shit? One thing I'll say before I get back on track with my story is. If you notice me getting confused here, my language getting kind of jumbled, I'm on a high dose of this medication called Zyprexa, which causes cognitive impairment as a side effect. And my mind is severely impaired. But to get back to the story, so now I've got a lady named Shirley. I'm running another scam with Atrium and Jenny. And so what I do is I call Shirley, and Shirley calls me back, and I record the conversation. In North Carolina, it's a one-party consent state. I can record the conversation on my own without, Shirley doesn't have to give consent or even know about it. And I talk with Shirley, and Shirley makes repeated attempts to get my full 9-digit social security number, which is, you go to my complaint, go to the evidence links, go to Atrium Health Fraud, and you will see the evidence for this is there, those recorded calls. But she makes repeated requests for my 9-digit social security number to remove a phone number. Okay, this is on June 7th. Now, of course, on June 6th, when Jenny first texts me and tells me to contact Shirley, I call Shirley and curse her out, and Shirley says she's removing the number then. Okay, so now on June 7th, she's saying that she needs my social security number to remove this number, get my full 9-digit social security number to remove a phone number off my account. She tells me that I would have entered Jenny's phone number as my alternate contact at the time that I did intake at the hospital. Now, this hospital where they have this inpatient unit is the same place that I go to get my routine care. And I checked in there first in August of 2011, around August to November of 2011. before I ever knew Jenny and before Jenny ever had this job. Okay, so I very obviously did not give them this number. I don't even know it, and I sure as hell didn't know it in 2011 when I did my intake paperwork. But this is what she tells me. And this is very, very suspect to me that she keeps trying to get my full 9-digit social security number. At one point, she lies to me and says that she has my 9-digit social security number on a paper in her filing cabinet. And so I refuse to give her my social security number as she makes repeated, desperate attempts. And what I gathered from conversations with Shirley, this girl Shirley, I'm calling this lady Shirley of Atrium Health Finance, and also with Atrium Health's privacy team, that the only reason that she could have possibly wanted my social security number was to order my medical records and file a Medicaid application. Now, at the beginning of this call, I deny any interest in Medicaid outright, completely, explicitly, and so there's no reason whatsoever for her to get my social security number unless she's trying to file a Medicaid application, get my medical records without my consent. That's what she's doing, and what's happened here is Wells Fargo has got wind that my medical records, that my doctors have called bullshit on their petition. They know they've already committed this healthcare fraud with the mobile crisis team. They came and visited me. And Wells Fargo also, I believe, was after my medical records from this hospital that I was at when I was 18. And that's why this lady's so motivated. Because again, she does this. She orders my medical records against my consent. She's looking at 5 or 10 years in prison, $300,000 fined. Okay. But she's like foaming at the mouth, very, very motivated. You know, why she's so motivated to get this info, to commit this crime that's going to get her in trouble, she gets caught, because she is being offered a hell of a lot of money. And who involved in this situation has a hell of a lot of money to pay her? Is it Jenny, who makes $55,000 a year or whatever she makes at a banking job working for a different bank? Is it this Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer who makes $40,000 a year, whatever it is that he makes? It's got enough to offer her. No, well, no, obviously, the big money player in the game that has the money to offer her enough money to offer her for her to be so intensely motivated to try to perpetrate this crime is Wells Fargo. And again, you can see this and go to my complaint that's down below. Download my complaint, keep a copy of my complaint, go to the evidence files, go to Atrium Health Fraud, and you will find all this information. You'll find my recorded phone calls with Shirley where she's asking for my social security number. You will also find my calls with the privacy team where the privacy team tells me that the finance department doesn't have my full social security number anywhere. Shirley's lying to me when she says she has it on a paper in her filing cabinets. And she's lying to me to disarm me, by the way, to make me think, well, hey, she's already got my social security number. It's just on a paper that she doesn't want to go get. So I should, I'll give her my social security number because she's going to have it anyways. That's what she's trying to do there, is make me think that. But again, it's all in the evidence. Go to this Atrium Health Fraud zip file and unzip that file, and you'll see the calls where all the evidence and all the facts that I just gave you. That the only use for this social security number is to order my medical records and file a Medicaid application. That all the facts that I've given are in that evidence link, or are in the files that are in that evidence file link for Atrium Health Fraud. Now, one question I can imagine coming up concerning that last video about the healthcare records, you can say, well, since she works in this hospital, doesn't she have access to your healthcare records anyways? She doesn't have access to my records from the other hospital, and she doesn't have permission to view my records in her hospital. As an employee of the finance department, there's no appropriate reason for her to be in my chart and to be getting my healthcare records. And so if she files a Medicaid application, that would be a legit reason to get the records. Now, why would Wells Fargo be after the records? I'm at the hospital. I'm 18. Well, they've been caught in a crime, and for one, there might be something on those records, which there are things on those records that could prejudice a judge or jury, bias a judge or jury against me. As I said in my other videos, I've spoken very, very, very stark, dark, evil, twisted, a lot of extreme stuff that I said when I was in that hospital. That relates to my self-perceptions at the time. They could find something to bias a judge or jury against me. And then the other thing is here Wells Fargo has made a stupid, you don't invade people's privacy like this, okay? And then they kidnap me. They look so foolish and so silly and so overtly criminal that one way to defend against this psychologically is to double down in the same direction. So they can make more vulgar intrusions and go off my healthcare records and make some justification. Well, we had to look into this guy's past. That we had to see what is about him because we saw this sign and that sign and this sign and that sign, and so they can wrap this whole narrative around their actions that's consistent. That hey, we looked into this guy's past because we had a legitimate reason to do so, and we didn't find anything. So we got his healthcare records from his hospital. It was at when he's 18. And then if there's something on those hospital records that looks bad, then this can be a justification for them. That again, they can wrap this whole narrative around this that has them coming out kind of smelling like a rose, appearing to be competent, and things like that. So here I've got this Charlie lady I've got it recorded asking for my social security number. Now, the next time that I go, after following this call with Shirley, next time I go to my nurse practitioner named Kathy to get my meds, to have a meeting. We have a meeting, we talk, and they write out my meds. I get my meds filled, the visit's there. When I go to this visit, I'm telling her about the suspect behavior from the finance departments. Now, Kathy, she thinks I'm overanalyzing the situation. She thinks I'm looking into it too much. That Shirley's just doing her job, and she wants, she says this, she discounts my concern. She doesn't think that I have a legitimate concern, with the fact that this lady is asking for my social security number. But then in the appointment that follows that one, so in the next appointment, the next following appointments, the next subsequent appointments, I tell her about how Shirley claims that this number was supposed to be entered as my alternate contact number, and I've never seen my alternate contact number in Kathy's systems. And what happens is Kathy has a realization. She gets this very disturbed look on her face, and she's realizing that something is up. And I didn't fully connect this at first with what's happened, but as I'm leaving that visit, she reaches out to shake my hand, and she has got a very, very disturbed, bizarre demeanor and look on her face. It's like something is eating her up. She doesn't like it. Now the implications of this become clear when after this visit with Kathy, a couple weeks down the road, I'm talking to Jenny, and Jenny very magically has things on her mind that I've discussed with Kathy. Okay, and I know how this works with poor little Jenny. Poor little Jenny. She's kind of not all there in a way. And one of the things that she does, she has what I call plagiarized private thoughts, where she hears something from somebody else, and then she tells it to you as if it's her own intuition, her own speculations, and things like this. And so when Jenny has this on her mind that I've talked with to Kathy, I know immediately that Jenny's got my personal medical information. At first, I think that she's got a printout of my notes from my clinical visits, and then I eventually figure out that Kathy has reached out to the people at Jenny and the people at Wells Fargo and just handed them over every detail. I don't know what it was, what the demeanor of the thing was, or what the tone of it was. It may have been, oh my God, he's trying to get us in trouble. He's going to get us in trouble. We got this finance lady committing this fraud because Wells Fargo needs the healthcare records. So let's just give it all to them. Whatever they need, we'll give it to them. Or it might have just been, they've got to handle the situation somehow, and they compare notes, and then they compare notes in a manner as if I have no privacy whatsoever to the painful details of my life that I can find in my doctor that they go and hand over to the world on a silver platter. Now at this point, my PTSD has been fluctuating. The symptoms go up and down, and this triggers an upswing in my symptoms. My hospital, instead of helping me, they've jumped in the dog pile completely. They were already involved in this crime where I was kidnapped and sent to their inpatient units because the guy at the door, he knows the meaning of this when they say that it'll be made. We'll make them both the same. That way we can say they put the wrong time. He knows the meaning of that. When the officer says it, that means that he was privy to this. He was part of this scam. He knows the illegal way that this petition was processed, and now I report more crime to my hospital, and my hospital responds with committing more crimes against me. Now this is particularly disturbing because my hospital, through the civil commitment process, I'm basically a prisoner at will of this hospital at all times. That anytime they want, they can go and fill out a clinician initiated petition to have me involuntarily hospitalized, and these magistrates will never, ever, ever question what a doctor says over the words of a mentally ill man. Okay, again, I've lost my liberty completely, that I'm entitled under the Constitution. I could be taken out here in handcuffs for no reason, committing no crime, done nothing wrong, at any time. Okay, and it's like I'm a prisoner at will of my hospital. I'm a prisoner at will of Wells Fargo. I'm a prisoner at will of anybody who has a contact within my hospital on their contacts on their phone. Okay, and this causes me horrific, terrible, terrible, terrible traumatic stress. And basically, what happens is my hospital is they're on the line for all these crimes that they've committed, and they threw their cards in fully with Wells Fargo. So you go to my complaint, go to my evidence links to this Atrium Health medical records fraud. You will see an example of how my medical records are being prepared for the benefit of Wells Fargo, meaning they minimize my suffering. And they discount my suffering. My suffering is either minimized, discounted, or absent in these notes. It's downplayed, watered down. That what I tell them doesn't get on there. The way I tell them, it gets sugar-coated to make it sound like that I'm just doing kind of fine. Okay, and they're committing ongoing HIPAA violations, contacting Jenny, contacting my mother, which my mother's a whole other can of worms. She will deny that she's been talking to these people. She's lying. Okay. But they're full on that the dog pile just gets bigger. Okay, so I ask Atrium to help me with Wells Fargo. I tell them about this crime, and if you know that Atrium Health is committing crime, they don't care. Don't tell them. Okay, they don't want to know about they don't want you to tell them about their employees committing crime. They're fine with their employees committing crime. What pisses them off or what roars them is when they're about to get caught. Okay, so you don't tell them about the crimes being committed by their employees. Okay, and I mean, with Atrium, just with Atrium, with all the HIPAA violations, participating in this kidnapping, everything that they've done, I mean, there's God knows how many decades of prison time to go around for these people if they get caught. Which, as I'll explain in the next videos, they're not going to get caught because I will explain in the next videos how I turn in my complaint. I write a complaint for the United States Department of Justice, the same complaint that's in the link down below in the description. That same complaint, I turn it to the United States Department of Justice, and what happens is the dog pile gets bigger again, and the United States Department of Justice and presumably others in the government start to sponsor a cover-up of all of these crimes, and they also sponsor criminal abuse of me. And so here I find myself in August of 2019 in a very, very bad situation. Okay, the dog pile includes Wells Fargo, the local police who have committed crimes against me. This hospital is in the mix, and man, I mean, now the thing is this whole time I've been collecting evidence and building up evidence for what has happened. So I've got the recorded call with Shirley. I've got my text messages with my manager Courtney, where I asked her for help, and she just mostly just bullshits and lies. But I can document her stuff, her explanations, and show what she gives away, and. So I'm building a case, and of course, my hospital knows that I've got a case, which it knows I'm in the Atrium Health fraud zip file, and my complaint of the evidence, the Atrium Health fraud. You will see that I've got extra Atrium Health calls. You'll just see there that they're sweating bullets when I'm talking to them. They seem like they're mad at me, and the one girl, she changes her goal. First, she wants to find out what on earth is going on with this phone number supposedly being in my chart, and then her goal changes on a subsequent call to she just wants to make sure it's not there anymore. You'll just see if you go to those Atrium Health fraud, those extra calls, if you care to listen to those. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you can see the suspect nature of those. And so as I'm gathering evidence and building a case, I do some things. One is I contact my psychologist from the mountains named John Mongio, who was my psychologist when I lived in the mountains, who was a very, very brilliant, very, very kind-hearted, caring man. That I knew that he had the competency to see what was happening. I needed his help. I needed him to intervene in this civil commitment process so that I can be interviewed, I can be evaluated by him instead of one of these doctors around here that are involved in all this crime, that I'm basically a liability for them. They're going to prison over what they've done to me. I don't need these people being these people's prisoner at will. And I had him write me. He wrote me some letters for my bankruptcy. I ended up in January of 2020. I ended up in a bankruptcy case, I had to file a bankruptcy petition for Chapter 7, And then the other thing that I do is around January 2020, I reach out to the LA Times. I contact their Signal chat line. Now on the LA Times, they got the Signal line, and I did something very, very foolish. I thought that what are actually received receipts were read receipts. So I thought that they were manning my messages, and I feel stupid about this, but I thought they were manning my AM 24 hours a day. And so I'm just sending them message after message. I've told the LA Times my whole life story. I've told about all my crimes, all the crimes. I sent them all of my evidence. The LA Times and their Signal line, they've got an excess of probably 15, 18, 20,000 messages sitting there that I have sent them. I eventually figured out that these received receipts are not read receipts, but I thought, well, if they didn't want them, they would be blocking me by now. And it didn't look like I was blocked. But I contacted the LA Times, and then in March of 2020, I start writing a complaint for the United States Department of Justice. And actually, it was actually in January 2020 when I started writing my complaint as well. And I had a little bit of a few pages, about 9 pages worth of complaint in March of 2020. And I sent it to the United States Department of Justice Criminal Division. And they said that my complaint needed to be more detailed, or they couldn't investigate Wells Fargo without a more detailed complaint. I also submitted a complaint to Health and Human Services and the North Carolina Attorney General. Health and Human Services, they got their OCR, Office of Civil Rights, that does investigations for HIPAA violations. And HHS turned me down as well. And so what I do is I spend the next 7 months on and off, and I'm having very, very bad traumatic stress symptoms. I'm pacing the floor all day. I'm in horrific shell shock. But as I have time, I'm working on a revised complaint that is very, very, very detailed, which is the complaint that's in the description here. That's the complaint that I sent them. And I eventually sent it in October of 2020. And nothing happens for a few months. Then all of a sudden, I've got these. I started having legit fitness models IMing me on Facebook. And these girls, at least the first one, and probably the second one too, I would say, but especially the first one, behave as if they're getting paid a fortune to be my girlfriend. And so what I'm thinking here is, I've sent them this complaint that tells about my painful life story of not having never had a girlfriend in the mountains because of all the stigmatization about my mental health condition. And so here they're like, this is a way to do this without tanking the economy. We'll get this guy a girlfriend. And I was very happy. Now at first I was hurt by this though. It felt like that they were trying to demean me a little bit. That here they're saying I can't get a girlfriend, so they're getting a girlfriend for me. Now in my books, the reason I can't get a girlfriend is because all this stuff is said about me, not because I'm incompetent or anything like that. Then the other thing is I first perceived this girl as to being a gold digger, that she's going to win the lottery by being my girlfriend. She doesn't really like me, doesn't really care about me. But then over time, I figure out she's a good person with good motives, and I'm really happy. I inundate the DOJ with communications starting around March or April of 2020. I'm sorry, March or April of 2021. It's in December 2020 this model contacts me. But this model would kind of give me hints of what I need to do, and she wanted me to get a brain scan. And I eventually got this brain scan, and what this brain scan, they wanted a brain scan to rule out alternate causes for my PTSD. That's what I deduced that Wells Fargo wanted. And when I get this brain scan, they rule out alternate causes, and then nothing happens. Okay, so whatever this girl was, I don't know if she's a scam or if they were originally going to give me this girl and then they took her away. And of course they would have paid her a lot of money and gave us a nice life. She's going to have a lot of money to go and be with me. I'm not pretty. I'm broke. I'm disabled. It's not like she's going to come and be my girlfriend for free. And I think what it was because I eventually told them that, hey, the LA Times hasn't really listened to a single message I've sent them, that I've been sitting here talking to nobody, that these people seem very, very motivated by their own interest, and they seem very, very ruthless, cold-blooded, and kind of selfish and cold-hearted. That's both Wells Fargo and the DOJ. Now I'll get into the DOJ in the next video and talk about their role in this. Now on to the Justice Department. And so there's one detail, is that Wells Fargo, have no doubt, They have illegally obtained, my health care records from this hospital that I was at when I was 18. Those records have some very disturbing sounding stuff that I said that amounts to nothing. You got to remember, the doctors who are the professionals that are competent to judge that, correctly judged. Again, I'm not a person. I'm a brain that's spun out of control. That's why they let me go home, despite all the extreme stuff that I said. But to the lay person, this could bias you. This could cause people to create a bias. And Wells Fargo has shown those to the authorities, approaches the authorities, DOJ and whatever other authorities. Probably the Federal Reserve have seen these records, I would say. And for sure, those records are known to have been illegally obtained by the authorities. Okay, so that's the first lesson about dealing with Wells Fargo. Is they're allowed, if they want to get out of jail-free card, the way to get out of jail-free card is commit another crime. Okay, they can commit one more crime and go and show the authorities the evidence of their crime that they just committed and have a discussion about that. Okay, these people, this Wells Fargo is unbelievably powerful. Its power comes from its resources, but it comes more so from the fact that this bank is just entitled to ignore the law as if the law doesn't exist by the authorities and by the regulators. Okay, that seems very, very, very clearly to be the case. I do believe that that is likely to create a bias with the Justice Department against me. Again, the appropriate thing for them to do is when Wells Fargo walks in there with their office with illegally obtained healthcare records is to put them in handcuffs and arrest them and prosecute them. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do when people show you illegally obtained healthcare records. But if you're Wells Fargo, then you get you get second consideration. Hey, we're not going to prosecute you for this crime these crimes you've committed against this man because this last crime you've committed, you justifies all the other crimes you've committed. It's a mess. But again, this model from Facebook that I was talking to, that she was seen to be clearly, that the Justice Department was aware of her, that it was part of why she was put in the picture. And again, this is around December, end of December 2020 that she comes along. And then in January, I go to Atrium Health, and I am being subject in my appointment. It's an online phone appointment. I am being subject to brazen healthcare fraud. Okay, that I bring up this kidnapping, which I have a very good rationale as to why I was kidnapped in this hospital stay. Again, I've laid it out here that every element of the crime of kidnapping under North Carolina, it's general statutes, it's chapter 14, section 39, I believe is what you call this. That I was confined against my will. I was transported against my will, 17.2 miles, and all this happened in a commission and to facilitate the commission of a felony, a series of healthcare frauds. I have a kidnapping. Yeah, that's my rationale for why this was a kidnapping, and you can see the evidence for this on these forged dates on the civil commitment petition. That's evidence of foul play there. But when I bring this up to this Atrium Health provider, he will not address my concerns about this petition. He won't look at the time on it. He starts going off in his own direction, and he eventually ups my medication and puts in my healthcare notes that my belief that I've been kidnapped is a symbol of a paranoid thought content. Because it's the same despicable tactic that Wells Fargo used, same despicable tactic that's been used for me, despicable tactic that's been used against me for now over 20 years. That my belief that this has happened is being written off as a paranoid, mental health symptom. Okay, now when this is going on, I'm puzzled. What's going on here? Because the U.S. DOJ, what I send to the U.S. DOJ gets back to this model that my communications to them get back to her. Somehow I can tell that much. And so it's like Wells Fargo is obviously they're the ones who tracked down this model and offered her a fortune. So it's like the U.S. DOJ, they're in the mix. Everybody knows they're in the mix. At Wells Fargo and Atrium Health, they know the U.S. DOJ is in the mix. So why in God's name, why are they still subjecting me to this brazen healthcare fraud? Like, don't they worry about getting caught? And what I subsequently realized is there's a perfectly good explanation here. I'm being subject to brazen healthcare fraud while the U.S. DOJ has its eyes on this situation because the U.S. DOJ is sponsoring it. We have a cover-up of the crimes that have been committed against me that is being sponsored by the United States Department of Justice and probably other people in the government. What's happened recently in the past about 3 months, 2 or 3 months, is, again, I inundate the Department of Justice with communications because I'm trying to get them to help me. And I send them detailed, I mean long, God knows how many hours of audios I've sent them explaining stuff and talking to them. And I mentioned in there about how my Adderall is my main medication, that's what helps me the most. And if I go without my Adderall, I turn into a vegetable. Okay, now this is stupid of me to do this because at this point I'm still trusting the DOJ. But what happens is after this, my very next appointment with Atrium Health, they take away my Adderall and they double this Zyprexa that causes me this cognitive impairment. Okay, and they make up this bullshit notes saying that I've got manic symptoms, which is total bullshit. It's deliberate fraud. This is clearly designed to handicap me and cripple me. Okay, so that's what good it does to send you communications to the United States Department of Justice. They go through there and find ways to criminally victimize you. And to, again, they're beating the hell out of a disabled man while they coddle this bank, okay? You'll see in my complaint, if you go down to the link below, I've got a complaint in the link below that has that I sent to the Department of Justice. Towards the end of that complaint, on about page 124, I have a list of the crimes, the felonies, and the civil torts that have been committed in this crime spree that's been initiated against me. So this bank initiates this massive monster-sized crime spree. I am a disabled man with PTSD, severely disabled. I submit it to the authorities, and the authorities come and beat the hell out of me and cover up this bank's crimes and coddle this bank. Okay? That I'm grateful for the Justice Department for attending to all my communications, which are a huge volume of communications. They appear to be trying to help me with this Australian girl in the beginning. I don't know what the hell happened there, but the fact still remains that, again, I submit this complaint and the dog pile just gets bigger. I need the United States of America to help me, and instead the United States of America jumps in the dog pile and starts to help Wells Fargo cover up Wells Fargo's crimes and authorizes and sponsors criminal abuse of me. Okay? And so what I need out of this is I need people to please help me. Share these videos with your friends. Share them to whoever you can. I've got to get the word out. I've got to get this brought into the court of public opinion so that this bank can be compelled to make it right with me, okay? Because I am suffering horrifically. I mean, right now, I have a feeling of helplessness. I just want to die. And you can't even tell by looking at me. And it kills me the way that I suffer so bad. And I have this feeling of this broken brain that is so horrible. I mean, it's terrible. Okay, and the other people can't see. It's not apparent in my appearance. Okay, I think we need to decide that maybe people, maybe you don't do business with this bank. You call them and tell them, we're going to do business with you until you stop your grotesque abuse of the mentally ill, your grotesque abuse of this man, and start acting, to treat people with dignity. Again, this is the most despicable thing I've ever seen of the most powerful people on earth, to victimize powerless people like me, because ultimately I'm powerless with my mental health condition. I found out I cannot get a lawyer to save my life, to help me with my case. I'm begging the U.S. DOJ to help me to get Wells Fargo to make it right, because even if I do get a lawyer, all the facts favor Wells Fargo because of this cover-up that's being perpetrated. So the criminal courts are not an option for me because this bank's above the law. The civil courts are not an option because A, I can't get a lawyer, B, even if I do, a cover-up has taken place. And so if I can get this brought into the court of public opinion, people can please hold this bank accountable for its rotten, despicable conduct. I mean, I cannot tell you how horrifically I suffered, how horrifically I have suffered, and I am disabled for life. Okay, that I will never, ever be able to work again, almost certainly. Certainly. And of course the thing is my healthcare records are being fraudulently prepared for the benefit of Wells Fargo and Atrium Health. So when I apply for disability benefits, I get declined because my my medical records don't reflect my disability accurately. And this brain scan that I got for Wells Fargo, because that's what they wanted to rule out other causes. So I get that for them, and then I get nothing for it, okay? And my poor aunt, who's very, very poor, had to pay the down payment for that brain scan because I couldn't get my mom to do it to save my life, and God, it killed me. I mean, I told her, I got to get the money for this brain scan. My life depends on it, and she wouldn't get it. And I missed this brain scan for three or four times in a row. I had to miss this brain scan. First 3 times because I didn't have the money. The last time because I didn't have money to have a cab. But my poor aunt had to let one of her bills go by for a month to pay the down payment for this brain scan that ends up just being a scam for Wells Fargo. Okay, so what Wells Fargo can do, they can evaluate their civil case against me and say, hey, maybe there's an alternate cause for his PTSD and we're off the hook. And we'll get his poor, impoverished family, his pitiful family, to pay for that, for us. Okay, and then not do a damn thing for me. Now the thing is I could have got a brain scan instead of getting an MRI to rule out alternate causes. I could have gotten an fMRI that would have helped me with my disability application. But instead, I get the brain scan that they want because I'm supposed to be getting help once they get that brain scan, and then I get it, and it amounts to nothing. Okay, that I've been cruelly massacred by this bank and by this hospital and by the United States Department of Justice, and I need people to please, I know I don't even know you, but please, for the sake of my dignity, for the sake of the dignity of the mentally ill, I mean, this is absolutely grotesque and sickening, and it brings to light, just how far behind the curve we are in America on treating the mentally ill and treating the mentally ill equitably, having them access to legal counsel, protecting them from abuse from these people. And I can tell you right now, I mean, from my experience, the mentally ill in my county, well, I'm not going to say it, okay, because maybe my experience is not typical, but if my experience is at all typical, that the mentally ill in this county get batted around like badminton balls, okay? That a bunch of for-profit hospitals that have a financial, they're a bunch of hospitals, they're not for-profit, they're non-profits, but they have a financial interest in keeping these patients, and they don't enforce their rights, don't even know their rights, and they get pinged and ponged by a bunch of magistrates that will sign off on anything, and I mean, this is just crazy. So please like this video, share it. You can subscribe to my channel. I'm not sure how much more stuff I will have on here, but please share my videos far and wide. Share my complaints. I've got a book that I wrote in my complaint. There's a link to a book that I wrote for young people. If you've got a young person in your life that you want to teach about how to make choices and about how to avoid alcohol and drug abuse, I've got a great book there. I've got a PayPal link that you can donate if you find my book valuable, or if you just want to help me. I'm disabled. I cannot make any income whatsoever. I'm living in terrible. I'm living in terrible pain. I mean, the suffering is horrific. I just want to die all day, every day. I've been fighting for my life for now 2.5 years, and I just keep getting pounded with more crime, and I don't know how much more that I can take. So please, I beg of you, please. And in my complaint, I've got a link to my Facebook profile. In my complaint, you can contact me on Facebook, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. If there's anything I can do to help you, if you will please help me. Okay, and if the Justice Department, the United States Department of Justice sees this, listen, you've made some mistakes. There's a lot at stake here. I know we got the economy and all this, and nobody wants to know about Wells Fargo's wrongdoing. That I want this to turn out to be a win-win for everybody. I think we have a great opportunity here to bring the issue of mental illness up to the forefront, and we can have this addressed in society. And Wells Fargo will kind of done us a favor by committing these crimes against me and bringing this issue front and center in our society. That this is kind of the last frontier in terms of the fight for dignity and equality of people's rights. We've got a substantial movement in race. We've got a substantial movement in gender. We've got a substantial movement in sexual orientation. We've got a substantial movement in gender identity. There's all these different fights for equality, and we don't seem to have nearly as substantial a movement in mental health. And I can tell you from my experience that people with mental illnesses are very, very dramatically misunderstood and treated in ways that are not fair at all. And I just need this bank to make it right with me, and then we can take the focus off of me, take the focus off of Wells Fargo, and put the focus on mental illness broadly and generally in our society.